is complete in some respect or other. The sale of PSBs or GIC, IDBI is already privatized 2 of the PSBs, sir, and 1 general insurance company also is being privatized. Sir, today and tomorrow, All India Bandh is called for only for against the privatization. So we, the state government of Andhra Pradesh, is supporting the Bandh and opposing the privatization of public sector undertakings. Sir. Sir, the public, what is expected of the PSUs by the general public at large? General public of this country at large expect the PSUs would contribute to the develop the critical infrastructure and provide affordable goods and services, and third, generate lakhs of employment, jobs, creation of jobs. Sir, it is these PSUs, and I refer to the Visakhapatnam steel plant, during the pandemic has helped the public at large and which is being privatized now, and who will take care of the public if you start privatizing all the public sector undertakings which are generating profit or likely to generate the profits. Sir, Vizag, coming to Vizag steel plant. Andhra Pradesh is the biggest victim of central government decision to privatize PSU, sir. And the state government has been agitating against the privatization of RINL for the last 1.5 years. Nothing. And BJP is, the ruling dispensation is not able to hear anything sitting in Delhi. What the people of the state who are crying there in Visakhapatnam, sir. Sir, central government wants to privatize VSP, that is Visakhapatnam steel plant, for the simple reason that it is incurring losses. In reality, it is not incurring losses, sir. I request the Honorable Finance Minister, Madam, to go into the records, and for the current year, it is 1,000 crore profit, sir. And sir, what has been invested by central government? The central government initially has invested about 5,000 crores in Visakhapatnam steel plant. Against investment of 5,000 crores for the last decades, how much it has got back? It has got back by way of dividends about 51,000 crores when it was earning profits. Just because in the recent past, it has incurred the losses, and the decision to privatize Visakhapatnam steel plant is really deplorable against the interest of the public, sir. And I request the Honorable Finance Minister, Madam, to scrupulously follow 3 R's, that is restructure, revamp, and revive the public sector undertakings rather than privatizing them, sir. Sir, why? Why Visakhapatnam steel plant is right now is incurring losses, not right now, in the past? Because central government has not allotted the mines to that, captive mines. And secondly, central government has refused to restructure the debt and waive the interest. It is because of these 2 reasons that it has incurred losses for a period of 5 years or so, sir. Sir, GST compensation. Sir, I heard the reply of Honorable Finance Minister when Finance Minister has responded to the question in the question hour, and it gave an impression that Madam has extended the GST compensation to states for a period of 5 years. I have repeatedly seen the video and tried to understand what Madam has said. Madam has said that this surcharge, what is levied, would be extended for another period of 5 years for the central government to repay the loans that it has paid to the compensation that has been paid to the states. In fact, Madam, Finance Minister Madam has not extended the compensation period to the state, payable to the states. I request the Honorable Finance Minister Madam to kindly reconsider and extend the period of compensation payable to the states for another period of 5 years. Sir, 2 more points, sir. 3 more points, sir. Cryptocurrency. Sir, it is very important, sir. Cryptocurrency. Another 2 minutes are there. Cryptocurrency. For the last 4 decades or 5 decades, Congress has ruled the country, and now BJP is ruling the country. I bring it to the notice of the Honorable Finance Minister that there is a possibility of misusing the cryptocurrency, and I humbly request the Finance Minister Madam to address the issue, sir. And sir, any transaction that is not routed through the exchange, there are about 150, less than 150 exchanges in the world, sir, cryptocurrencies exchanges. Any transaction that is not routed through the exchange, and the transaction that takes place between the two individuals, myself and my friend Rameshji, how the government will come to know? See, according to me, there is a possibility of Congress or BJP opening 90 crore accounts and transfer the funds through DBT, sir. Direct benefit transfer scheme to buy the voters, to lure the voters. So this has to be addressed, sir. And finally, sir, very important amendment to the Finance Act. Madam has proposed and amended Section 147 of the Income Tax Act, which Congress party has misused for 4 decades, sir. Sir, assessing officer, there the words that have been omitted from the section is, according to 147, an assessing officer who has a reason to believe that the income has escaped assessment, he can reopen the assessment. Now, that reason to believe has been omitted and dropped by the Honorable Finance Minister, Madam, last year. Now, assessing officer has got an unfettered freedom. Whether he has a reason to believe or not, he can reopen the assessment. Now, we are the political parties and regional political parties on which the ruling dispensation can take the vengeance. And earlier they have taken the vengeance and they have foisted, so Congress party has foisted so many false cases. So I request the Honorable Finance Minister, Madam, to kindly look into 147 and then restore the amendments that have been made in the last year, sir. And last point, sir, Section 10, subsection 23C. The charitable institutions, they are all charitable institutions. They are not discretionary trust. Charitable institutions which are covered and comply with the conditions of Section 10, subsection 23C have been, and the conditions have been made more stringent and imposed, and stringent conditions are imposed at par with those of the trust covered under Section 11 and 12. By doing so, we are not doing justice to the charitable institutions, sir. I request the Honorable Madam, Finance Minister, Madam, the government can very well delete Section 10, subsection 23C and make all the trust claim benefits under Section 11 to Section 13 of the Income Tax Act. Such a step will simply simplify the law, and there will not be any separate category of special status of the trust claiming exemption under Section 1023C, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Dr. V. Shivadathan.
Respected Chair of the Honorable August House, here our Honorable Member Vijayasai Reddy referred the struggle of workers, and also he supported the struggle. Today, while we are sitting in the house, while our workers of the country is on the street, their demands is directly linked with the policy of the government. Sir, they are demanding for a better life for the people of our nation. They are demanding better education. They are demanding better food, better clothing for everybody in our nation. One of the great poets, Pablo Neruda, told us that he was asked, why you are not speaking on the beauty of the native country? Why you are not speaking on the big mountain of its native land? Why you are not speaking the and see the blood in the street? Sir, I think this is the very important point what Neruda told us. So here, I try to recite two lines. जब गुलिस्ता को लहू की जरूरत पड़ी, सबसे पहले हमारी ही गर्दन कड़ी, फिर भी कहते हैं हमसे ये अहले चमन, ये चमन है हमारा तुम्हारा नहीं. When the garden needed blood, you have cut our necks. Even though you are telling us the garden is yours, not ours. Sir, I am telling, sorry, this is not work in our nation. Our nation, our great nation, India is built by the sweat and blood of the workers in our country. India, the great nation, built by the sacrifice of the peasants. India, the great nation, built by the martyrdom of youths. So this country, the workers will fight against the policies of the government. So the fighting spirit of workers you will see in the street. Sir, the government the union government is trying to help the corporate houses, big corporate houses, and they are trying to help them to exploit the people in various ways. We are seeing these all things in different ways. The food, employment, health, and education, and other facilities are very important for the development of the society. But existing government is not ready to invest proper amount for the development of the society, for the development of the marginalized communities. They are not ready to help, try to eradicate malnutrition, poverty, these kind of illness. They are neglecting education and health facilities for the nation. The finance minister, respected minister, says there is a record GST collection, but the marginalized communities are not getting proper share for them. So, sir, the budgetary allocation, the figures are clearly shown that the common people will be charged and richest will be benefited. This is the existing condition. Sir, again I am telling, there was a lot of incidents which prove the anti-people approach of the government. One of these, sir, related to the midday meal system. 1,500 crore rupees has been reduced in this year present budget. So it will affect the students, especially those who are from the marginalized section. Sir, currently in India, young children are facing lot of crises. They are facing different problems. We see child mortality, maternal mortality, stunted growth, wasting, and anemia. So the number of anemic children in India is the largest in the world. Sir, now the world is discussing the situation in Sri Lanka. There, the common people is in the long queue for getting a piece of bread and water. Sir, I am adding something related to this, sir, but in India, the anemic children is 94 million. Sir, 94 million, it means this 94 million means this is 4 times of entire population of Sri Lanka. That means 4 crying Sri Lankas are here. Here in India, starving Sri Lanka, 4 starving Sri Lanka is here, sir. So again, another thing is, sir, now we are discussing the Ukraine issues. There, the bleeding war field of Ukraine. Sir, the number of the anemic children in India is the more than the 2 times of Ukraine, entire population of Ukraine. So this also we will be discussed here, sir. Sir, UNICEF report says that the major portion of the death of children under 5 is related to malnutrition. Every day in India, more than 4,500 children die. In a single minute, we are losing 3 children. Sir, in Global Hunger Index 2021, the position of India 101 out of 116 countries. Sir, Global Hunger Index has been prepared on the basis of the performance in undernourishment, child wasting, child stunting, and child mortality. The report of National Family Health Service, NFHS 5, has shown the status of India. In these areas, in India, we will see these all cases, a huge urban-rural divide also we are seeing. The extreme divide between urban and rural areas is pointed in the report. Sir, in neonatal mortality rate, the child death before the first 28 days of the birth, urban is 18, rural is 28, average, national average is 25. Infant mortality rate, sir, urban is 27, rural is 38, average 35. Under 5 mortality rate, urban 32, rural 46, average is 41. Child stunting, urban is 30, rural is 35, national average is 41. So child wasting, urban 35, rural 37, average, national average is 35. Sir, 2 points, sir. Underweight is urban 27, rural 33, national average is 32. Sir, these all things I am quoting from the report of the government report. In this capital city, sir, Delhi, 3 girls aged between 2 and 11 starved to death, sir. Doctors in the hospital, after the postmortem report, they said, sir, they had not eaten a single piece of bread in the previous 7 days. In previous 7 days, sir, they couldn't take a single piece of bread. The majority of the workers in India are getting very meager amount as their wage. Sir, the minimum wage of employees in various parts, their minimum wage is below than the price of the 2-liter petrol, sir. And there is a huge decrease in the real wages of the workers. The existing wages to the workers is not sufficient for to buy even a liter cooking oil. So even a cooking oil, they are unable to buy with their wages, sir. Sir, the workers have their own dreams. They have dreams for better education. They have dreams for better food, for clothing, and these all things are, everybody have their own dreams, but they are unable to fulfill their dreams with this wage. The workers of the world unite is the word is in our hearts, sir. And Max, in his great work, you told you have nothing to lose. Also, we are keeping in mind. So, sir, I am repeatedly telling to you, एक बागी नहीं, मनोजा, एक बागी नहीं, एक गेत नहीं, हम सारी दुनिया मांगेंगे. So, sir, here, sir, our constitution, preamble of the constitution says, we, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. So, sir, these words I am concluding. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sivdasan. The next speaker is Dr. M. Thambudurai.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The fourth union budget presented by the Finance Minister, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, on 1st February 2022 was like a booster dose for the economy in the endemic, post-endemic era, wherein the government has chosen to lead the path by heavily increasing the capital expenditure to create a cycle of high growth, employment generation, spur in the consumption, which in turn is like to bring buoyancy in revenues rather than going for the fiscal squeeze, which is required to take India to the next level. Sir, I want to make one thing very clear. Some of our opposition members accused the Prime Minister has not taken keen on the poor and others. There is no development like that. I want to say, sir, the budget seeks to lay the foundation for achieving the vision of the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi ji. For example, if you take agriculture, agriculture is giving more importance during Modi's period. He allocated lot of money, and also the agriculture workers, the rural area, is getting lot of incentives, and they have given the money for them, putting in their accounts to give purchasing power and the employment opportunity. And also, you know very well, when we are facing this pandemic situation, how our Prime Minister acted to see that to boost get the more vaccinations for that, for encourage our Indian manufacturers to do that, laboratories. He visited physically. Taking the risk of his life, he visited most of the labs and to see whether it's going on or for the country. That way, he is such kind of a man. He has taken so much stress for the poor people and for development of this country, and also the vaccines which produced also exported to other countries also. That way, he is concerned for other states, other countries also. That way, he showed his human kindness. We have to appreciate that, sir. Regarding the last time also, in the question number you have seen, in the employment, our Honorable Minister is a Labour and Employment Minister is there. I raised a question. At that time, he answered how these recent years the employment ratio increased year by year. That showed that employment opportunity. How is our Prime Minister giving to the youth? Is especially for education, health, and other sectors is showing. Especially, sir, if you take schemes wise, if you take also drinking water scheme, yes, allotted a lot of for that. Then also for housing scheme, Prime Minister allotted a lot of fund for that. For roads, historical allocation given for the road development. And also education also same way. Defense, he is more concerned about the security of this country. That is why when Prime Minister has taken over this reins of this country, he is concentrating more on the defense sector to see that external threat must not be there, especially from Pakistan or China and other countries. That shows this capacity, how that when he is investing more, employment is also getting, sir. And also, especially MSME sector. MSME sector is given more than 9% of that thing has been increased to give them a lot of employment opportunity. Sir, I want to say some things regarding the Tamil Nadu also. Sir, Edappadi Palaniswamy, as a Chief Minister at that time, a lot of welfare schemes for socio-economic schemes. He implemented that based on our Amma, Madam, who has done Jayalalitha ji at that time, same way he has done what MGR also did. But our Elango said, this government is not caring about the poor people. Repeatedly go on arguing, this government is not bothering about the poor people. There is no socio-economic development interest. Sir, I want to put one question to the honourable members. When they present the budget in Tamil Nadu, what's up the budget that Tamil Nadu is implement? They never included what the promises they made in the election phase. For example, you have 1,000 rupees to every family members. Whether implemented or not. No, I'm telling, because when you are, sir, and also, for example, 2,500 rupees, our Edappadi Palaniswamy is given the every household car holders in the pandemic situation. Not only pandemic, Pongal gift also is given. But that has been withdrawn. Sir, Mangal Sutra is a big, good scheme for poor people giving gold to the Thali Tangam. Madam Jayalalitha has brought.
It is his time.
But it is,
It's not your time, it's his time. Let him speak.
Because when you said, sir, when you said that there is no, this government is not caring about the poor, whether that government is caring about the poor, I want to ask them. Thali Tangam, there is a good scheme for the educated people, poor people. Madam, is into the scheme. That scheme implemented very well by Edappadi Palaniswamy. But now, this government has stopped. Then how can if they come and discuss and criticize this government when Modi is giving a lot of welfare programs? So many, Madam Sitaram from Tamil Nadu, She is coming, giving a good budget when everybody is appreciating. Why has to go on telling, there is socio-economic neglected, this same word that DMK has gone telling. Which they neglected this kind of programs. That is why what we are seeing that, sir. This is another thing, sir, regarding education. Sir, our country needs 5 sectors we have to consolidate. One is agriculture. Second is education. Third is health. Fourth is defense and other industrial activities. I appreciate that, sir. But what I'm suggesting, sir, education side, health side, we require giving a lot of importance, which our government is coming forward. But I request financial minister, one problem is facing self-financing institution, trust, what our trust recently said, our Andhra friend has said just now, Reddy has said, Trust Act, when the Congress was in power, they brought an act making all 85% of the trust money be spent same here. They cannot save it. Otherwise, income tax won't accept. But now, sir, pandemic situation has come. Most 2/3 of the institutions in India run by the trusts. When trust is not having money, they are not saving. How they give the salary to the people? Therefore, that class is affecting. That is trust. Therefore, if a government somebody says, don't pay the tax, the country means, can the government able to run the government? Therefore, same way, if your trust cannot have the money, the parents, how they give the salary to the workers or teachers, or so many institutions are suffering that. Therefore, I am requesting the Honorable Finance Minister look into this. How the Trust Act is not a correct one. It's going to affect the so many employed people, many teachers and other workers. The country, they're suffering a lot because of that. Government is not in a position to finance for the institutions. Government is, the bank is not going to give loan that. How they going to run that? Therefore, that's the lacuna which created by the Congress government that has to rectify this present government, seeing this situation, sir. This I am requesting. Same way, income tax. Income tax department, madam has given certain concession last time. Appreciate that. At the same time, previous government, nothing done. I know that. But now, once again, requesting Honorable Finance Minister to see sympathetic with the salary class people. When price index is gone increasing, your slab is still you are maintaining that. Therefore, they are not in a position to pay that. Therefore, I humbly request Honorable Finance Minister to look into salary people problem, how you can further give concession. That is my humble request. I welcome this budget. It's a fine budget. It's a sympathetic, socio-economic based on that. And also, Narendra Modi ji is very concerned about the poor people, and he has brought so many schemes, well-known schemes. I once again appreciate this government, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Sukhendu Sagarrai.
While participating in this appropriation and finance bill, the first thing that occurs to my mind is that this government has given a return gift to the nation after the elections in the 5 states recently held. First of all, the petrol and diesel prices have risen 6 times in 7 days. LPG cylinders costlier by 50 rupees, and it is almost rupees 1,000 per cylinder. Prices of kerosene oil have doubled. Edible oil prices are up by 25 to 40%. 11% hike in prices of essential medicines, and it will be further rise in the coming months, according to reports. So, rise in prices of cereal, fruits, vegetables is driving up the food inflation. Petrol prices for bulk users has been increased by rupees 25 per litre, and jet fuel prices have also increased by 18%. Everybody knows in this country that when the price of bulk users for particularly diesel is increased, there will be cascading effect on all the essential commodities because of the transportation of the goods from one station to another. Sir, Moody's Investors Services has estimated that fuel retailers together lost around rupees 19,000 crores in revenue for keeping petrol and diesel prices on hold during elections in 5 states, because the government did not want to rationalize the price during election because of the political reasons. And after 5-6 months, it has been doubled, tripled, and going up every day. So my submission to the government would be that it needs to be ensured that these losses are not entirely transferred to the common people. So far the finance bill is concerned, it was passed in Lok Sabha after accepting 39 amendments to the bill that was tabled. Why was there so many amendments? Was it because of poor drafting? Was it because of careless proofreading? Or failure to complete stakeholder consultations and feedback gathering ahead of introducing bills in Parliament? Because everything done in a hush-hush manner, and all on a sudden it is tabled in the Parliament, either in this house or on this house. So far finance bill is concerned, it was tabled naturally in the other house. So government is emptying out the piggy banks, the borrowings from small savings. The borrowings from small savings are designed to support household and pensioners, not to finance the government's deficit. In 2021, the government budgeted to borrow 2.4 lakh crore from small savings, but ended up borrowing more than double of this figure. For 22-23, the government has budgeted for 5.6 lakh crore, a figure bound to increase that is lower than last year revised estimates. Sir, poor allocation for marginalized groups. This year's budget has allocated rupees 70 crore for the rehabilitation of those involved in the manual scavenging under the self-employment scheme for rehabilitation of manual scavengers. This is 30% less than the last year's allocation of rupees 100 crores. Shockingly, even this 100 crore was revised down to rupees 43.31 crores. Why is not the government able to utilize the allocations made towards manual scavenging? Is there no seriousness in ensuring that people are not forced to risk their lives and dignity like this? Instead, the government tells us in this house that no workers have died due to manual scavenging. It's a shame on the part of the governmental authorities. Sir, the central government has Shreyas, an umbrella program comprising 4 highly important higher education programs, namely National Fellowship for SC, National Overseas Scholarships for SCs, top-class education for SC students, and free coaching for SC and OBC students. But this House will be shocked to know it saw a combined allocation of only rupees 364 crore. Sir, so far the women and children are concerned, the general budget has decreased from 0.71% of the GDP of the revised estimates for 21-22 to 0.66 in the estimates of 22-23, according to an analysis of the All India Democratic Women's Association. I don't know how it is true, but government will be in a position to tell this House that what is the truth all about. Sir, at rupees 92,736 crore, the children budget has also dropped from 2.46% of the expenditure this fiscal to 2.35% in the next fiscal. Between April to December 21, only 48% of the approved budgets for midday meals had been released. For ICDS, it was 52%. The allocations for midday meals are 11% lower than the budget estimates for the previous year. Sir, so far the education is concerned, the budget allocation made last year for education saw a 6% decrease from the budget allocation made in 2021. This year, the allocation saw an increase of 12% as compared to last year, but only a 5% increase over the allocation of 2021. The entire allocation on education for the previous year has not been used in spite of the economic survey, finding an increase in the number of children not enrolled in schools after the pandemic. So ironically, the total expenditure in education is less than 1% of the GDP, whereas the cash-strapped states, they are contributing 3 to 4 times than the center. So the states are more effective than the central government in providing funds for expenditure in the education heads, on the education heads. Sir, my next point would be, the government has claimed the the government has made tall claims about resource mobilization. But according to me, the main target of this government for resource mobilization is only to sell out the public properties, lock, stock and barrel. Sir, and they have not spared any sector, any of the public sectors like airport, port, rail, bank, insurance, and even mini Ratna companies of the public sector. Sir, I am coming to one or two provisions of the Constitution. Sir, Article 36 of the Constitution, which deals with the directive principles of state policy. This should be a Gita or a Quran or a Bible for any government in running the government, for the governance of the country. Sir, ये संविधान का बात है भाई, समझिए पहले फिर बोलिए, बंगाल भी बोलिए, गुजरात भी बोलिए. Sir, my next point I am submitting to you. Article 38, sub-article 2, it says, and I quote, the states shall, in particular, strive to minimize the inequalities in income and endeavor to eliminate inequalities in status, etc. Then, Article 39, Clause B, that the ownership and control of the material resources of the community are so distributed as best to serve the common good. And next, Clause C, that the operation of the economic system does not result in the concentration of wealth and means of production to the common detriment. And what is happening? When the Modi government came to power or the BJP government came to power, I stand myself corrected. When the BJP government came to power in 2014, there were 103 billionaires. And they had 22 lakh crores of wealth at that point of time. And in 2021, that is last year assessment, 142 millionaires, they rose from 103 to 142. And these 142 billionaires are having 53 lakh crores wealth. And what is our budget, total budget coverage? Only 35 lakh crores. So government budget coverage is 35 lakh crores, and 142 billionaires, they are having 53 lakh crores of assets. So this is the inequality which is not only detrimental to the common good as enshrined in the Constitution under the head of directive principles of state policy. Therefore, I urge upon the government to follow the constitutional provisions in letter and spirit rather than to sell out everything to the big corporates, the crony capitalists. It seems to mobilize resources, this government has become bankrupt or insolvent. And the insolvency and bankruptcy code may be made applicable for the government also. Because the figures I have mentioned before you, it is crystal clear from the figures that the government has totally surrendered to the crony capitalists, and all the economic policies of the government, they are being dictated upon by the crony capitalists, and this government is only implementing their policies. So this is an agency. This government has become an agency of the crony capitalists. So this is my submission, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Bisambar Prasad Nizar.
धन्यवाद उपसभापति महोदय। विनियोग विधेयक 2022-23 के लिए मैं समाजवादी पार्टी के राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष माननीय अखिलेश यादव जी, प्रोफेसर रामगोपाल यादव जी की तरफ से बोलने के लिए खड़ा हुआ हूं। जहां आज पूरे देश में बैंकों की हड़ताल है, आज हम सदन में विनियोग विधेयक पर चर्चा कर रहे हैं। पूरे देश का लाखों बैंक एम्प्लॉय जो है, जो सरकार की गलत नीतियां हैं, निजीकरण को लेकर के जो है आज बैंक 2 दिन की हड़ताल में है। हम अपनी पार्टी की तरफ से उनका सपोर्ट करते हैं, मांग करते हैं कि जो बैंक कर्मचारियों की जो समस्याएं हैं, जो निजीकरण है, बंद किया जाए। गांधी जी ने बैंक गांव-गांव में बैंक खोलने की व्यवस्था कराई थी कि गांव का आदमी गांव में बैंक रहेगा तो गांव में पैसा जमा करेगा, लेन देन करेगा। आज सब प्राइवेटेशन हो रहा है, जिससे किसान, मजदूर, गरीब सब परेशान है। मनोहर, इसी से चूंकि जब निजीकरण होगा तो लोगों की नौकरियां जाएंगी और जो परम पूज्य बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर ने जो SC ST के लिए, OBC के लिए आरक्षण दिया था, धीरे धीरे निजीकरण से जो है लोगों की नौकरियां जा रही हैं, आरक्षण खत्म होता जा रहा है और SC ST OBC के लोगों को जो है आरक्षण खत्म करके गुलाम बनाने की साजिश की जा रही मानव। इसीलिए OBC के लोग मांग करते हैं, जो देश की आधी आबादी से ज़्यादा लोग हैं, कि हमारी जाति जनगणना करा ली जाए और हमें आबादी के हिसाब से सभी सेक्टरों में भागीदारी दी जाए। मानो अभी हम देख रहे हैं, लगातार बात चल रही है। अभी डीजल पेट्रोल के दाम, जब उत्तर प्रदेश में चुनाव था, 5 राज्यों में चुनाव था, तो 1 महीना डीजल पेट्रोल के दाम नहीं बढ़े। सरकार यही कहती थी कि ये अंतर्राष्ट्रीय बाजार पर निर्भर है, उस समय क्यों नहीं बढ़े और अचानक 50 रुपया रसोई गैस में बढ़ा दिए गए। डीजल पेट्रोल के दाम रोज बढ़ रहे हैं और जीवन रक्षक दवाएं जो आम आदमी की दवा है वो जो है कई गुना बढ़ने जा रही हैं, और पैरासीटामोल भी। और हम देखते हैं जीवन रक्षक दवाओं के लिए 10 गुना से लगा के 200 गुना तक दाम उनके निर्धारित रहते हैं और इतनी कालाबाजारी होती है कि जो MR होते हैं और मेडिकल स्टोर वाले होते हैं, डॉक्टर वही दवा लिखता है जो MR उसको सजेस्ट करता है, 200-300 गुना उसके दाम होते हैं और किसान घाटे खेती कर रहा है, उसकी लागत का भी मूल्य नहीं दिया जा रहा। खर्चा लोगों के जेब में जो है पैसा कम है और खर्चा ज्यादा है। मानवर, आज हम देख रहे हैं कि देश के गरीबों किसानों पर टैक्स लगाया जा रहा है। आम आदमी की सवारी साइकिल है, साइकिल पे 18% टैक्स है। हम मांग करेंगे माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी से कि गरीब मजदूर आदमी साइकिल पे चलता है, उस पर टैक्स खत्म किया जाना चाहिए। आपने हीरा पे टैक्स खत्म किया है। हीरा कौन उद्योगपति, बड़ा अमीर आदमी हीरा खरीदता पहनता है, तो इसलिए साइकिल पे टैक्स खत्म किया जाना चाहिए। मानवर, शिक्षा में, स्वास्थ्य में, सब में बजट की कमी की गई है और खास तौर पर SC ST OBC के जो बच्चों को छात्रवृत्ति मिलती थी, मिडिल क्लास तक, 8वीं तक, तो उनके स्कॉलरशिप भी खत्म कर दी गई और उनके जितने कोचिंग सेंटर थे, जो बजट था उसमें, जो मेन बजट इनका है उसमें बजट घटाया गया है। और मानवर, आज हम देख रहे हैं देश में समान काम समान वेतन की कर्मचारी मांग कर रहे हैं। 10-10, 12-12 घंटे लोगों से काम कराया जाता है। देश के चाहे आंगनवाड़ी वर्कर्स हों, चाहे आशा वर्कर्स हों, चाहे शिक्षा मित्र हों, चाहे अनुदेशक हों, चाहे पंचायत मित्र हों, चाहे होमगार्ड, PRD से लगा करके, चौकीदार से लगा के, सब लोग मांग कर रहे हैं कि हमको हमारा जो 10-12 घंटे काम लिया जाता है, समान वेतन किया जाए। इसी तरह से मानव, देश के केंद्रीय सेवाओं में और प्रदेश सेवाओं में लोग जो है पुरानी पेंशन की बहाल की मांग करते हैं। मानवर 22-23 में 2004 में वाजपेयी जी, बीजेपी की सरकार ने खत्म किया था पुरानी पेंशन। 80 लाख जो है आवासों की बात कही है और मैं याद दिलाना चाहता हूं माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी का भाषण, चुनावी भाषण उठा के देखिए, उन्होंने कहा था 2022 तक देश के सभी गरीबों को पक्का आवास देने का काम करेंगे। आप 80 लाख का बजट किए हैं। और हम बताना चाहते हैं, मकान 1,20,000 का मिलेगा। आपने बालू के दाम, मोरम के दाम 4 गुने कर दिए, सीमेंट के दाम 2 गुने कर दिए, लोहा सरिया के दाम 2 गुने कर दिए। कैसे गरीब आदमी 1,20,000 में मकान बनाने का काम करेगा? हम देखते हैं उसमें घोटाले होते हैं। बांदा फतेह में हम देखा कि जितने भी आवास है वहाँ पे जो है उस पर भी दलाली हो रही। तो
interventions made by other members except Mr. Nisad will
हम
not
बोल
go
रहे
on
हैं, तो
record.
उनको डिस्टर्ब करें ना, उनको रोकिए ना। मानवर किसान आज घाटे खेती कर रहा है। अन्ना प्रथा से हमारा पूरा देश का किसान परेशान है। आमदनी 98, खर्चा रुपया। आज किसान मजदूर के पास जब से नोटबंदी, जीएसटी और ये लॉकडाउन हुआ तब से लोगों के रोजगार चले गए। मानव किसानों के लिए स्वामीनाथन रिपोर्ट के लिए इन्होंने कहा था स्वामीनाथन रिपोर्ट लागू करेंगे, क्यों नहीं लागू कर रहे? मानवर हम तो चाहते हैं कि एमएसपी का कानून बने, और जिस तरह से आप उद्योगपतियों के लिए कानून बनाते हैं, उनकी मूल्य निर्धारण करते हैं, उसी तरह किसानों के लिए एमएसपी का कानून बनना चाहिए। मानवर आज देश का किसान आत्महत्याएं कर रहा है। देश का किसान चाहता है कि जो उनके पास कर्जा है, आप चुनाव में तो हजारों अरबों रुपए खर्च करते हैं, देश के किसानों का जो है कर्जा माफ किया जाना चाहिए। मानवर उनके लिए बजट में कोई कर्जा माफ करने की, जब चुनाव आता है तब कर्जा की बात करते हो, जब चुनाव खत्म तो कर्जा की बात नहीं करते हो। तो ये बजट में कर्जे माफ करने की कोई व्यवस्था नहीं। मानवर हमारे यहाँ तमाम अभी डिस्टर्ब कर रहे हैं, हमें बोलने नहीं दे रहे हैं। जब इनका मौका है तो बोले।
चेयर को एड्रेस करिए, आप बोलते जाइए।
मैं आपसे
बाकी कुछ रिकॉर्ड में नहीं जाएगा, सिर्फ आपका जाएगा।
विनती करना चाहते हैं कि आज देश का किसान, नौजवान, जब से नोटबंदी, लॉकडाउन हुआ, देश के बहुत हालत खराब है। आज किसान, नौजवान आत्महत्या कर रहे हैं। इलाहाबाद में 3 बच्चों ने आत्महत्या कर ली। लोग डिग्री जला रहे हैं इनकी सरकार में, नौकरियां नहीं मिल रही लोगों को, और ये लोग एक शोर मचा रहे हैं। केवल इन्होंने सरकारी मशीनरी से, ईवीएम से पूरे उत्तर प्रदेश में तो अखिलेश यादव जी को जनादेश दिया था। केंद्र की सरकार ने बेईमानी से जो है उत्तर प्रदेश में सरकार अखिलेश की बनाने से रोकने का काम किया है। उस पर आप कहते जनादेश आज उत्तर प्रदेश में हटा से निराशा है। तो मानो हम ये हल्ला कर रहे हैं, शोर मचा रहे हैं, इनका जवाब मैं दे रहा हूँ। तो मानो आज जरूरत है किसान की आमदनी बढ़ाने का, उनकी लागत के अनुसार उनको जो है उनका एमएसपी कानून बनाने का। उनकी हम यही मांग करें कि बजट में जो है किसानों के लिए जो है खाद, बीज उनके सब्सिडी दी जाए, और किसानों को निःशुल्क सिंचाई, निजी ट्यूबवेल की सिंचाई फ्री की जाए। इस तरह से तमाम ये मांग करते कि वित्त मंत्री निवेदन करेंगे किसानों के लिए, जिससे आत्महत्या न करें। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
The next speaker is Praful Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman, sir. I will be as constructive as possible without getting into this blame game on either side. We must look at the situation in the country for the last 2 years, especially with the COVID pandemic. It has been something very unsettling, not only for the country, but for the whole world. And I must say that we must compliment both the government of India as well as all the states, irrespective of party affiliations, how everybody has collectively fought this pandemic, and we have not entirely come out of it, but relatively the impact to India has been much softer than what one had expected. In fact, in the March of 2020, when the pandemic started, and for the first 3 months when the country was under complete lockdown, and the uncertainty which was prevailing all over the world, we didn't know what was the pandemic about, what is the cure about it, and then we just barely came out of it. We had a second wave, and then fortunately the third wave was a little bit of a milder one. But nonetheless, I think the pandemic has been a very unsettling moment for the country. And we are some of the figures do reflect that things are much better. GST collections, as many a speaker have mentioned, and the finance minister mentioned in a budget speech also. But purely going by GST numbers and being very happy that we have achieved 1,30,000 crores for at least 5 months in this current fiscal year, while it is a good sign, but also it does not reflect the true state of the economy. There are many sectors, and I'm sure the finance minister is aware of it, which have still a lot of stress, and they need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed timely, especially her latest intervention in the budget about the hospitality, tourism, and related sectors, where she has announced a further package which was over and above the MSME package which was announced last year. Well, I must say that while some of the benefits have reached some of the industries, but I am sure that there have been a lot of fatalities, mortalities in this sector, also in the MSME sector. Many a small company have closed down permanently, which needs to be addressed, and I'm sure it is a matter of concern. The most destabilizing factor after the pandemic has come the Ukraine war. And I think when she delivered a speech on the 1st of February, Madam Finance Minister was not aware that this could be a situation which will arise a few days later. And the Ukraine war has demonstrated that suddenly, have you seen, the prices of fuel were going up, but they have really hit the roof, and Petroleum Minister is also sitting here in the House. He will acknowledge what are the special circumstances. We are comparing the current fuel price increase with something which happened during 2008-9. While we are comparing it, I don't think it is apple to apple exactly, because in 2008-9, there was no Ukraine conflict. There was some different situation. At the same time, the rupee then was around 40 rupees a dollar. Right now, the rupee is at around 77 rupees to a dollar. So there is going to be a major impact on the finances of the government of India, no matter how good we want to portray the numbers. Because these numbers, while 400 billion of exports have been achieved, very creditable, very laudable, but we must also understand that the balance of payments, we are also going to face an equally higher deficit because of the higher import fuel bill, which will lead to still the disparity between the exports and the imports, and that will be close to almost $200 billion this year. So I'm sure Finance Minister is aware of these issues and will address them suitably. I also would like to mention specially here that her budget speech mentioned some money coming from disinvestment of public sector. That the LIC disinvestment itself is on hold. That reflects that because of the uncertainty of the Ukraine war and the current economic climate, there is going to be a challenge for her to meet some of those numbers also. So while I'm not a complete proponent of disinvestment or not disinvesting, I would like to look at it objectively. But at the same time, I think your numbers on all heads of the budget are going to be impacted hugely because of this current situation which has arisen after the Ukraine war. I would also like to reflect, on the middle class, because the middle class is the most, I would say, the boxed in, the sandwich class of the country. They have very little flexibility. They cannot reduce their spending. They cannot increase their earnings. Most of them resort to minor savings. Most of them go to banks. Still, there's less, I would say, an eagerness for people, the middle class, to invest in other instruments. Some people do go to mutual funds and all, but that's a very small number compared to the number of people who want to put their savings in a more secure format. And therefore, today banks offering 3.5%, and compared to the inflation, official inflation figure of 6% plus, which you yourself have mentioned, you can imagine very well that an average middle class person cannot make two ends meet, cannot beat inflation with the amount of interest. In fact, the income will be reduced to that extent year on year. And the middle class feels the heat of high petrol prices, diesel prices, cooking gas prices, and all the general items on the inflation list which we normally see. So therefore, I feel that at least on the savings account, some kind of a balance. I'm sure the Reserve Bank and everybody wants to reduce interest rates for lending especially. But for people who go for savings especially, small people, I think we need to have a relook, because 3.5% interest rates certainly don't do justice to anybody. And on the other side, some of my colleagues have spoken about tax exemption limits. Again, the middle class is the one which is feeling the heat of the exemptions not being increased year on year to keep pace with inflation. I feel something needs to be looked at meaningfully on that account also. My point is about the current situation after the Ukraine war. We feel an increased threat perception all around the world, and especially in our neighborhood. We have Pakistan, a perennial problem to deal with. And China is also equally another perennial problem. And with the kind of geopolitics which is playing around in the world, India with its issues itself with Pakistan and with China, the continuous border issues going on in Ladakh and in other parts of Arunachal Pradesh, I think we need to look at our infrastructure development, especially in these areas, much more meaningfully. Yes, you are doing a lot in the road sector, especially thanks to the big cess you are collecting on petroleum products, which again is being redeployed for infrastructure building. I think it's good. There's nothing to complain about that. But at the same time, the infrastructure in the certain sensitive areas of the country which affect national security need to be addressed much, much more aggressively, because considering the way China is building roads, bridges, airports, railway lines, and all the other peripheral infrastructure all across Arunachal Pradesh and in Ladakh, I think it is very important that we spend much more money on our defense expenditure than what we are doing. And I feel sometimes when we go through some of the figures and when we talk in general, even with some of the people who are experts in the field, the amount of money allocated for capital expenditure versus the amount of money which is actually spent, there is a mismatch. I hope it is not, but if there is, I think it needs to be corrected. There was a lot of discussion on the crypto. Ma'am, I would like to state very clearly that I share the sentiments expressed by my colleague, Mr. Sushil Modi, and many other colleagues. Crypto is one of the kinds of currency which even somebody like me, I called a cryptocurrency expert. I sat with them. I tried to understand with all the wisdom at my command, and I failed to understand anything about cryptocurrency till date. I have not neither purchased, but I wanted to understand, at least to educate myself, to understand what this animal is all about. We went to Reserve Bank of India as a finance consultant, as a finance standing committee member. We tried to discuss with the Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank is also very clear that they cannot allow this kind of currency to be, officially allowed in the country. And I agree with you. I agree with the sentiments which you expressed in your budget. I also agree with some of the provisions of tax and other, restrictive measures which you have brought in the budget. But I think it needs to be much more aggressively tackled, because this is an unknown animal. And for most people, if people like me, after calling an expert, have not been able to understand, I can imagine the average Indian who could be lured by the, easy money access and quick money multiplier to fall into the trap of this cryptocurrency. And most of them are fake. We read every day articles about people being, fooled into buying cryptocurrency. Some of my colleagues may not agree with me. I know that. I know some of the proponents of cryptocurrency are also there, both in this house and the other house. But that notwithstanding, I feel you need to be aggressive and take even more stronger posture. I'll just wind up. The NCLT, we brought in the IBC code with a good intent. You did get some success initially, but the NCLT and the NCLAT are still struggling to cope up with the numbers of cases which they have to deal with. There are so many vacancies there. Please do something about this. Otherwise, the IBC, the efficiency with which and the quick resolution for which it was intended to be legislated, that purpose itself stands to be defeated somewhere. So I urge you to look at that very meaningfully. A lot has been spoken about exports. Agriculture exports can be one of the biggest, I would say the backbone of Indian exports. And I think a lot is being done also. It's not that it's not being done. But we need to strengthen that. We really need to support. Today, aquaculture. We are the largest exporters of prawn in the world. We need to strengthen that, give more incentives there. Even about agriculture, you were mentioning, somebody mentioned about rice being, we are the largest exporter of rice. Yes, we do export rice to most of the world. We are exporters of dairy products, we are exporters of almost any item you can name in the head of agriculture. But I think, are we doing enough to promote agriculture exports? I think we can improve on what is being done so far. And finally, I would like to say that industry, while after the industrial licenses have been dismantled many, many years ago, anybody is free to set up an industry wherever, fine, that's not the real issue. The issue is that even today, after so many years, and especially my colleagues who come from the remote areas, who do not come from Mumbai, Pune, or Delhi, Faridabad, NCR, or other big cities, or Bangalore for that matter, people who come from the remote areas of the country, still the primary demand when you go to a remote district will be, हमारे यहाँ industry कब आएगा? हमारे यहाँ रोजगार लोगों का कब मिलेगा? How will that happen? I think the time has come that while we are being aggressive about industrialization of our country, we must come with some innovative measures where we incentivize industry, especially when it comes to backward regions of the country, the backward districts of the country. We have identified so many backward districts. We already have it in our schedule, and the government of India has it. There are some incentives given to those backward districts in terms of financial and monetary benefits, but those are very minuscule. But if you really want to industrialize those parts of the country, I think we need to have some more aggressive measures where industry feels incentivized enough to go there and set up shop there. That will lead to lesser migration to the bigger cities. And the strengthening of agriculture, increase in irrigation outlays, and industrialization of those areas will change the landscape of India from the rural migration to the urban and will uniformly develop the country. I think that would be in the interest of the nation. So, sir, thank you very much, and I hope some of my suggestions would have meaningful thought of the Finance Minister.
Thank you. The next speaker is K. Ravindra Kumar.
Sir, Deputy Chairman, sir, thank you for giving this opportunity. Union budget is for the entire country. It is because its proposal requires the states, the constituents of the Union of India to undertake and execute certain financial commitments for the development of the country, along with the path scripted in the Union budget. The Union budget for 2022-23 has been framed to pull the economy out of the ill effects of COVID-19 pandemic through increased capital expenditure. However, I would like to point out the inadequate allocations for health, education, agriculture, including research, MNREGA, etc. We need to increase investments in human capital alongside physical infrastructure. Necessary funds should be made available under these heads as we do go along in due course. Similarly, Honorable Finance Minister announced in her budget speech 22-23 that under PM Vidya scheme, a further Vidya scheme for a further 188 TV channels would be launched for enabling supplementary education to classes 1 to 12 with the slogan of one class, one TV channel. However, we see that the allocations towards PM Vidya scheme in the budget documents, allocations was a mere lakhs of rupees. How it is possible? More allocations of funds are required for this. In this context, with the given limited time, I would like to touch upon two aspects: the broad principles of the union budget for 22-23 and the philosophy and the state of finances in my state of Andhra Pradesh. Firstly, about my state, the report of the Controller and Auditor General of India on the budget of AP 2020-21 was presented in the State Assembly only 4 days back, that is on 25th of this month. It revealed a set of very disturbing facts that should be serious concern for this August House and the Union government as well. These revelations include expenditure of 1,11,000 crores without the approval of the State Assembly for 2021, which is about half of the total expenditure. Transactions of rupees 48,234 crores, which is about 1/3 of the total budget expenditure, without proper accounting and documentation and in violation of the Treasury Code, not informing the State Assembly. Borrowings of rupees 38,312 crore. Diversion of about 30% of central funds to unintended items of expenditure. Utter mismatch between budget allocations and actual expenditure, and particularly for the welfare of backward sections, scheduled caste, women and minorities, grossly inadequate capital expenditure, which is essential for development of the state, heavy reliance on borrowings in the name of the welfare schemes, etc. The questionable transactions of 48,234 crores is about 730 times that of the alleged Behar fodder scam. This misappropriation is deeply troubling, and this is for only one financial year. 48,230 crores were misappropriated from the budget. Elaborating on various misdeeds of the AP government, the COG has observed that there are in violation of the provisions of the Constitution, which stipulate that not even a rupee can be spent without authorization by the state legislature. The COG also noted that much misdeeds promote financial indiscipline and even probable misappropriation, stating that it is rare in the history of auditing of public finances in the country. The COG refused to certify 1/3 of the financial transactions by the government of AP for 2021, perhaps for the first time in the history of the country. This August House needs to know why it is happening in a major and important state like Andhra Pradesh and what it amounts to. Sir, our country has been suffering the consequences of externally sponsored terrorism for a long time. The dictionary meaning of terrorism is that it is calculated and unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians in the pursuit of political aims. Going by this definition and the modus operandi of the present Andhra Pradesh government, there is financial anarchism in Andhra Pradesh to serve the political interest of the ruling establishment in the state. With the all responsibility, I venture to say, so because the irresponsible financial mismanagement, including utter indiscipline and gross violation of the Constitution and the attendant consequences, has all the element of anarchism. The consequences being a serious threat to the future of the people of the state, born out of a calculated consideration of the ruling establishment of their political objectives. Serve their political objectives. The present government in AP is unleashing a quite violence against the people of the state from gross misuse of the public finances for personal gains. The AP government has not so far responded on spending over 1 lakh crores without the approval of the State Assembly. On the expenditure not certified by the COG, the state government only said it was only a book adjustment. These defenses did not seem to have been accepted by the court. The arrest of this financial anarchism in AP, the central government should seriously consider imposing financial emergency in the state under Article 360 of the Constitution of India in the interest of the state of AP. Otherwise, the present and future of the people of the state will be seriously endangered. We cannot keep quiet when the AP government has unleashed a serious attack on our Constitution and our Parliament in the form of violation of the acts made by it, like the Fiscal Responsibility and the Management Act, and recommendations of the Finance Commission regarding the disclosure of borrowings, etc. Regarding allocations for my state of AP, the High Court has clearly stated that only Amaravati can only be the capital of the state. In my view, the state government did not choose to go and appeal to the Supreme Court on the judgment passed by the Division Bench of Andhra Pradesh High Court at present, but discussed the judgment of Division Bench of Andhra Pradesh High Court in the State Legislative Assembly and undermined the judiciary, particularly AP High Court, which is not warranted. The Honorable High Court categorically declared that the Andhra State Legislature has no legislative competency to enact any law for shifting the organs of the state, since the capital of Amaravati has been established pursuant to the Article 4 of the Constitution of India, read with 6 and 94 Clause 3, Clause 4 of the Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act, which was enacted by the Parliament and issued mandamus directing the government of Andhra Pradesh to develop the Amaravati capital region by providing all infrastructure facilities, etc. Instead of implementing the same, the state government made an attempt to attribute some motives to the High Court in the name of discussion on the powers of the legislature. However, it is high time to develop Amaravati capital. So I urge the central government and the Honorable Finance Minister to ensure substantial allocations for the development of the capital of Amaravati. The earlier Telugu Party government has allotted lands to 43 institutions of the Union government and its PSUs in Amaravati capital region. I appeal to the Honorable Prime Minister and the Finance Minister and the concerned ministers to do the needful for quick launches of these institutions. Sir, Vizag Steel Plant, with regard to the great concern of the people of Andhra Pradesh, the disinvestment proposal and privatization with regard to the Vizag Steel Plant, I request the Honorable Finance Minister to drop such proposal and continue as it is. Sir, I want to make it a political, with regard to the point with regard to cess and surcharge. The 80th constitutional amendment provides for all central taxes except the surcharge and cess to be shared between the centre and the states. That means cess and surcharge will not be a part of the divisible pool. Till 2015-16, surcharge and cases were just 5 to 6% of the gross tax revenue. Now it has increased more than 9% of the GTR, gross tax revenue. So the intention of imposing surcharge and cess instead of imposing taxes to avoid sharing of the tax with the states, this has to be relooked and reviewed. So, sir, finally, I appeal the government to do the needful and save the people of Andhra Pradesh from the financial anarchism of the state government and secure their future, if necessary, by invoking Article 360C, by imposing financial emergency in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The next speaker is Syed Jafar Alam. Jafar Islam, sorry.
थैंक यू वेरी मच सर। फिर से मुझे अपॉर्चुनिटी दिया हमारी पार्टी के लीडरशिप और आपका दोनों का धन्यवाद करता हूं। मैं यहां खड़ा हूं फाइनेंस बिल और अप्रोप्रिएशन बिल के समर्थन में, आज मैं खड़ा हूं बोलने के लिए सर जब हम बात करते हैं बजट के बारे में, मैं कई लोगों को सुन रहा था। आई हर्ड मेनी स्पीकर्स, मेनी ऑफ आवर colleagues who are very learned members, they have spoken about budget, they have given their opinion. बट एक चीज़ बहुत कॉमन देखा सर, मैं बड़े अफसोस के साथ कह रहा हूँ कि सब ने इसको बजट एक्सरसाइज को के जो ऑब्जेक्टिव है और जिस बैकड्रॉप पे बजट को बनाया जाता है उसके बारे में चिंता किसी ने नहीं की। देखिए बजट एक्सरसाइज जो इस तरह से सरकार ने किया, सरकार की कोई इंटेंशन होती है, किस सर्कमस्टांसेस में जो है वो बजट बनाया गया है और उसका क्या इंटेंशन है। आप पिछले 7 सालों में देखिए सर, और ख़ासकर पिछले 2 सालों में जब FY20 का जब बजट पेश किया गया था और उसके बाद जो FY21 का नंबर देखिए और FY22 का नंबर देखिए, तब समझ में आएगा कि बजट जो है सरकार बनाती है एक अजम्पशंस को लेकर बनाती है सर, लेकिन सरकार का जो कंपैशनेट अप्रोच हमारी सरकार का है और जो बेसिक प्रिंसिपल आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा है और जो उन्होंने दिखाया है, डेमोन्स्ट्रेट किया है कि he will not do things beyond his means and he will never punch above his weight. What does that mean, sir? It means कि सरकार के पास जितने आइडेंटिफाइड रेवेन्यूज है, रिसोर्सेज है, उसका प्रॉपरली एलोकेशन करना चाहिए और एप्रोप्रिएटली एलोकेशन, जब रिसोर्सेज एलोकेशन होंगे तो उसका मकसद क्या है सर? वेलफेयर ऑफ द स्टेट, जो हमारी सरकार कर रही है। उसके साथ साथ टू सेफगार्ड द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ द कंट्री, वो हमारी सरकार कर रही है। पिछले 7 सालों में जिस तरह से देश दुनिया के नजरों में उभर कर आया है सर, जिस तरह से हमारी इकोनॉमी तेजी से दौड़ रही है, आज मुझे अफसोस के साथ कहना पड़ रहा है कि कभी कहा था कैनेडी ने, एक बार कहा था कि वेयर विनर्स हैव मेनी फादर्स बट लूजर्स हैव नन, ही इज एन ऑर्फन। आज मुझे ऐसे ही लगता है, जब देश की इकोनॉमी पूरे दुनिया में जगमगा रही है, लोग देख रहे हैं कि इंडिया इज ए शाइनिंग ब्राइट स्पॉट अमंग ऑल द इमर्जिंग इकोनॉमीज, तब दुनिया वाहवाही कर रही है। लेकिन अफसोस की बात है, देश में इसके बारे में क्रिटिसिज्म चल रहा है। जबकि लोगों ने, मुझे अच्छा लगा प्रफुल्ल पटेल जी ने कहा कि 2 सालों में, पिछले 2 सालों में जिस तरह से, जिस बैकड्रॉप पे, जिस सिचुएशन में हम कोविड के सिचुएशन में इस बजट को पेश किया और एक बजट को नहीं पेश किया सर। हमने देखना चाहिए कि ये सीक्वेंस है। हमने आत्मनिर्भर पैकेज को पेश किया सर, आत्मनिर्भर पैकेज एक नहीं अनेक आत्मनिर्भर पैकेजेस को हमने पेश किया है। 2020 के मार्च के बाद जब हमने लॉकडाउन लगाया, वो अनप्रेसिडेंटेड सिचुएशन थी। उस वक्त वी वर लिविंग इन टाइम्स ऑफ अनसर्टेनिटी सर। उस वक्त हमने बजट पेश किया और उस बजट को आज जब देखते हैं, आत्मनिर्भर पैकेज 1, 2, 3, 4 एंड देन फॉलोड बाय सेवरल बजट्स, तब मुझे लगता है कि हाँ, इस देश में 2 आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री की जो सोच थी, आत्मनिर्भर बनाना है, देश को आत्मनिर्भर बनाना है, और उसके लिए पॉलिसी इनिशिएटिव उन्होंने ली, जो आज के इस बजट पे दिखता है, पिछले बजट में दिखता है, आत्मनिर्भर पैकेजेस जो दिए उसमें दिखता है। लेकिन अफसोस की बात है कि लोग जो है क्रिटिसिज्म करने से पहले उस चीज पे ध्यान नहीं देते। देखिए, किसी ने कहा था सर, और आज मुझे लगता है कि आज अगर आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के बारे में ऐसा मैं कहूं, आदरणीय फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर के बारे में कहूं, तो गलत नहीं होगा कि वाइज मैन इज वन हु इज एबल टू सी डार्कनेस इन द लाइट और हु कैन सी लाइट इन द डार्कनेस। मतलब क्या सर, अगर कोई ऐसी बुरी चीज हो रही, अंधेरा दिख रहा है, जगमगाती दुनिया में अंधेरा दिख रहा है, वो स्पॉट अंधेरा देख सकता है, वही अक्लमंद आदमी है, इसलिए पॉलिसी इनिशिएटिव लेता है। लोग कहते थे अमेरिका ने इतना बड़ा पैसा बांट दिया, हम क्या कर रहे हैं, कंजम्पशन नहीं बढ़ रहा है, हाँ तो लोगों को पैसा बांटो। आज देखिए अमेरिका में क्या हो रहा है। आप देखिए यूनाइटेड किंगडम ने बोला तो पैसा बांट दो सब जगह। हमने क्या किया सर, हमने कल्याणकारी योजनाएं निकाली सर, वेलफेयर स्कीम, लोगों को राशन पहुंचाया जिसकी जरूरत थी। हमने डीबीटी ट्रांसफर भी किया है, ऐसा नहीं है, हमने डीबीटी ट्रांसफर भी किया है। हमने बहुत सारे ऐसे इनिशिएटिव लिए हैं जिससे वेलफेयर ऑफ द स्टेट, जो लोग आम नागरिक को मजबूत करने का काम किया है। लेकिन हमने किसी और को फॉलो नहीं किया, इसलिए कि हमारा एक प्रिंसिपल था, नेवर पंच अबव योर वेट। जितनी हमारी सलाहियत है, देश को उसी सलाहियत पे रखना है और उस आगे बढ़ना है, उस ताकत को मल्टीप्लायर इफेक्ट देना है। इसलिए प्रधानमंत्री जी ने इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को फोकस दिया। इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के मतलब जाहिर है मल्टीप्लायर इफेक्ट लेके आती है। अगर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में 1 रुपया इन्वेस्ट करते हैं सर, तो जाहिर है वो 1 रुपया नहीं रहता है नेशनल जीडीपी में। जब वो नेशनल जीडीपी में जाता है तो 1 रुपया अगर रेलवे करते हैं तो विद बैकवर्ड इंटीग्रेशन एंड फॉरवर्ड इंटीग्रेशन वो होके 5, 6, 7 रुपए तक का नेशनल जीडीपी में कंट्रीब्यूशन देता है। रोड में उसी तरह से है। और आप देखिए जिस तरह से एलोकेशन, जो बजटरी एलोकेशन रोड में हुआ, रेल में हुआ, जिस तरह से आइडेंटिफाई किया है, जब हमने इतने सारे इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर प्रोजेक्ट के 100 लाख करोड़ से ऊपर का, और जिस तरह से हमने गति शक्ति का जो एक पूरा रूप दिया है, उससे आप समझ में आता है कि हमारी कोशिश है इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को बढ़ावा दें, हमारी कोशिश है कि लॉजिस्टिक को हम प्रायोरिटी दें, ताकि हम जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में जो हमारा फोकस है कि इंडिया को एक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हब बनाना है, उसमें हम कामयाब हो पाएंगे। आप जरा पॉलिसी इनिशिएटिव को देखिए ना सर। मैं तो कहता हूं कि लोगों से आके देखना चाहिए कि सरकार ने कैसे इनिशिएटिव लिए। बहुत सारे ऐसे लोगों ने रिपोर्ट्स बनाए हैं। आई थिंक मैं लोगों से रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा, अपने लर्नड मेंबर्स से और अपने कॉलीग्स से यहाँ पर, कि उन सब रिपोर्ट्स का कभी कभी पढ़ लेना बुरा नहीं है सर। उनको पढ़ने से शायद थोड़ा सरकार के काम को और देश की जो शक्ति बढ़ रही है उसके बारे में अंदाजा भी होता है। आई थिंक देयर आर मेनी सच इनिशिएटिव, स्मॉल इनिशिएटिव व्हिच हैज बीन अंडरटेकन बाय द गवर्नमेंट इज नाउ बियरिंग द फ्रूट्स। We have also taken various structural reforms, which is also now giving us the desired outcome. Look, we were talking about GST. Everybody was criticizing about GST. Not GST, the outcome, everybody is talking about it. Now, but consistently we are getting 1.3 trillion rupees every month after month after month. Why? Because we have gone through the pain when we had to do these structural reforms. We knew that there will be some slowdown. People will criticize us. Because when you undertake structural reforms, it slowed down the economy a little bit. It did. And we are not afraid of that because we know what we are doing. We're doing for the good for the country, in the interest of the country, and that is what we did. And the result is for everyone to see. It is for everyone to see that there is a GST collection of 1.3 lakh, 1.3 trillion rupees per month, and it's going on a month-to-month basis. Secondly, what is important, sir? We had set a target of that we will have target of export of $400 billion. I must compliment the government. I must compliment the concerned minister for achieving this target on 20th of March. It is not an easy achievement because given the global situation and circumstances we are operating currently, it is indeed a very good achievement because we had set a very stiff target for us. $400 billion is a very good outcome, sir, and I'm sure that given the initiative which the government is taking, given the priorities which we have set in for our government and for the growth of exports, we will certainly will go much higher number in the future. सर आप देखिए लोग कंपेयर करते हैं हमारी सरकार के बारे में, हमारे बजट के बारे में क्रिटिसाइज करते हैं. मैं तो कहता हूं भाई मैंने लोगों को सुना जरा सा 2000 आप जरा यूपीए के टाइम में देख लीजिए, चाहे हेल्थ सेक्टर पे देख लीजिए, चाहे आप इस पे देख लीजिए कि किस तरह से हमारा एलोकेशन है, एजुकेशन सेक्टर पे देख लीजिए, आप देख लीजिए कि जरा आप रूरल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पे देख लीजिए, रूरल सेक्टर पे देख लीजिए, आप जरा देखिए तो सर मैं कहता हूँ 1.6 ट्रिलियन रुपीस अगर हम खर्च कर रहे हैं हेल्थ सेक्टर पे, आप सारे हेड्स को मिला लीजिए, आप देखिए कि ये कितना बड़ा है, 4 times of what it was in 2014. Because we are extremely sensitive and sincere about people of this great country. We want their welfare. We understand that's our priority, that's our responsibility, but we cannot ignore the interests of our country because we have to ensure that we should stand on our leg and very firmly, and that is why it is important for us to take some tough calls, tough measures, and that's what we have done, and we will continue to do that. We will take reform measures time and again, because it is important not for us, it is important for our country. Today, our country is viewed very differently. Despite the Ukraine crisis, despite the Ukraine war, everybody, we had faced similar kind of situation in 2008 when we had a global crisis, economic crisis. What we had done at that time, we had given our bank standing order to give loan to everyone. Don't evaluate. Why? Do not do proper credit evaluation process. Do not follow that. As a result, what happened? Inflation was in double digit. There was a debt curse. I think everybody should read that report. Honorable Finance Minister, former Finance Minister is here. I would request that he must also read that report which has been not published by us or of any of the member of this House, but it was published by an independent agency, Credit Suisse. And that suggests that at that point in time, when we were distributing loan free without proper doing due diligence, we were not even worrying about the collateral. And as a result, what happened? Since 1947 to 2006, our loan book of nationalized bank was 18 lakh. Suddenly it ballooned to 52 lakh. Why, sir? What happened? We were giving loan without doing proper due diligence. As a result, we had NPA. We have suffered. The country suffered. We suffered. As a responsible government, we didn't make hue and cry. What we did, under the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister, that we have set it right. We have capitalized the bank. We ensured that banks are healthy and they are enabled to lend again. And we have also come up with many legislation to ensure that recovery is done. And we have recovered money. And with this new legislation in place, we are able to recover those money. We are also able to, credit growth is now so visible. On a month-to-month basis, credit is growing. Despite the fact where we have Ukraine crisis, despite the fact there is still threat looming on our head. Now, sometimes second wave, sometimes Omicron, sometimes Korea, something is being, people talk about some other virus, some other infection. We have seen everything, we are seeing everything. Yet, the vaccination efforts of the government is being talked about across the globe, unlike in the country, where people still, despite what we have achieved, is unachievable for many people, for many countries. Yet, people are still criticizing. We are feeling safe. You are feeling safe. Everybody is feeling safe because of the government's initiative. What we have to do? We have to criticize the government. Put government in the dock. We are not afraid of putting us in the dock. But also you have to evaluate your own performance. What was the size of the GDP in 2014? What is the size of the GDP now? What was where were we in 2014 and where are we now in terms of our standing in the global economy? See the landscape, global landscape and where we stand today. We are ahead of United Kingdom. We are very close to, we are almost on a neck to neck with Japan. We are knocking the door of other Germany. We will be, by 2030, we'll see, we'll be third largest economy and the biggest market in the world. Because we have our strength and we are capitalizing our strength. This government feels that our strength needs to be capitalized for the welfare of the people and for the betterment of the country. Not for a particular family, not particular community, but for society as a whole. And that is what the budget is. And that is what budget is meant for us. And people are talking about we have not done that, we have not giving subsidy, we are not reduce the subsidy. Sir, I would like to bring the attention of every single member of this house that when we present the budget is presented, it is only a budget. And when the government is a compassionate like us, our government, then we see the revised estimate you need to see. And then you see the final allocation, what has been made. We have when the poor needed, the marginalized section of the society needed support, it is us, we have supported it. Didn't we open our coffer for them? Okay, we did. Despite the fact that there was no revenue during the lockdown, there was no economic activity, government was struggling for resources. Yet, what we did, we prioritized that our people are our strength. They are our strength. We must protect them. What we did, we provided them ration, free ration. We provided every possible support, what they were expecting from the government. And it's so visible today that people feel that there's a government of the day who will always stand by them, despite whatever the situation, because at the end of the day, it is our responsibility and we will not shy away from our responsibility under the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister. We have demonstrated not once, time and again, we'll continue to demonstrate that we will, for our country, for the betterment for our people, for the welfare of our people, we will not shy away from taking any tough decision, any tough measures. And so it is visible from the budget which is being presented, sir. Sir, people are talking about, I heard one of the members was speaking about retrospective tax. Who had introduced this retrospective tax? It is this government which has put to bed all this speculative approach which the earlier government had. It is this government. People are happy. There is a stability. There is a simplicity of our tax structure. People feel comfortable. People feel, yes, this is the place to invest. That's why our FDI is going up and up every time. And we are growing. FDI is growing because they feel comfortable. They feel that there is a government of the day and there is a initiative of the government and the leadership of the state which lends a lot of comfort and confidence to global investors. And that's why global investors are putting a lot of money here and they will continue to put money. Last week I was traveling abroad, sir, and even though it is not warranted to speak here, but I feel I'm tempted to speak because there were parliamentarians from 200 other countries in an assembly where I was attending, and I was speaking there. I felt so proud, sir. I felt really so proud, and I must compliment the government and the leadership of this government. That everybody, despite Ukraine crisis, people were talking on one side of Ukraine crisis. The other side, they were saying, India is in a very strong position. India is a very good, a very commanding position. India, they were always talking about the strength of India, and that has lent a lot of confidence even in me, a new parliamentarian. Barely a year ago, I have been a member of this House. But that shows that what initiative Government of India has taken in the last 7 years, which actually make every citizen of this great country feel proud and confident, comfortable and secure, because the government feels the government's initiative is such that we do not leave anyone. We will never leave anyone. Those who need support from the government, we will empower them. We will hold their hand, empower them. And that is what the Honorable Prime Minister has done. That is what the Honorable Finance Minister has done when she presented this budget. Just see the numbers. I mean, I'm not even talking about the numbers, sir. But somebody was talking about debt to GDP. Somebody was talking about tax to the GDP. Are we better than what we had projected, what we had presented last year? Did we not go beyond our own expectations? Are we not growing? I mean, it is for us to see that country is growing, the economy is growing, the tax collection is growing, the certainty of tax collection is so visible now. It is so evident because of the initiative which has taken. Yes, I can still understand, and I have spoken many times on this, and many people have spoken. There are many people who understand economy and will understand that when you do difficult and back-to-back structural reforms, it slows down. And when the global economy is also compressing, that yes, your Indian economy is not in isolation, is operating in isolation. It will also be impacted. So was the situation before 2020. But today, we are in a very robust position. The economy is firing all cylinders, sir. The initiative which has been undertaken by the government is giving fruits to the country. And all the numbers which we'll see only will lend you confidence, because if you just see all the numbers, like for instance, e-way bill, the PMI, e-way bill is growing on a month-to-month basis. The PMI, again, it's an expansionary mode. It is consistently beyond 50, and it is not only beyond 50, 53, 54, both on services side as well as manufacturing. And again, government intention is that we want to make it India as a hub for manufacturing, and that is what the initiative they have taken. That those who have China +1 policy will definitely engage India and put their money and they will have set up here in India as well and export from here. Lot of initiative government has taken. Some have been announced, some will be announced. But the trajectory is absolutely clear. The decision process should be seen in continuity, not in isolation. This is not a process of extrapolation of one number every year, the way people speak here. I feel only that they're expecting that government should extrapolate the number which has been presented earlier. That's not the approach. That should not be the approach, because government has responsibility. Government has responsibility not to only one section of the society or one particular segment. Government has responsibility for the entirety. And when sometimes they have to give here, prioritize here, next time they have to prioritize here. So it cannot be extrapolated. When Garib Kalyan Yojana has to be introduced, you have to hire higher allocation for subsidy. And it is evident from the number, when they will withdraw, then it will come off. But when again they have extended yesterday, then of course the allocation will be more than what has been presented in the budget. It is so simple for everyone to understand before criticize the government. The intent is very important for us to understand, sir. Intent. It is so evident. Anybody who will evaluate or analyze the budgetary approach of our government, they will see the honorable former finance minister sitting here last time when he was speaking about the budget, he criticized about unemployment. And I must tell him, the number we had picked up was a weekly number, not the monthly number, and I would request him, what he had presented and what it was two different numbers. And it was very important for all of us to understand what number is being presented, whether the House is being misled or whether the number is not actually being presented the way it should have been presented. Because if you take a particular number, slice it the way you want to slice, of course it will give a different perspective, different color. But if you follow the methodology which everyone is following, then you will get the desired result which everybody will get, and it will be uniformity for you and even for you to evaluate. And I think the day it was presented, I can always request them to go back and see CMEI number on a monthly and a month basis, and we have, prior to pre-COVID, what the unemployment rate was, we have gone much better than. Our consumption level has gone up. Unemployment rate has come off. The saving rate has gone up. The demand is going up. The salaries are going up. Every numbers are giving a lot of confidence. Power consumption, power demand has gone up. Fuel demand has gone up. So what are you? The economy is filing cylinders, all cylinders. What exactly you expect from the budget? Budget is to ensure the policy initiative of the government at that point of time, whatever it requires, that should propel the economy and safeguard the interests of the people. And that is what is happening. The economy is firing all cylinders. People are happy. We are winning election after election. Why? Because the common man on the street feels comfortable. They feel there is a government, there is a leadership of the government who will empower them, hold their hand and empower them. So they feel much more comfortable. Sir, I would request them that all the macroeconomic parameters on evaluate our performance on all macroeconomic parameters. You will get to know how our government is faring, how our government has performed. Of course, I would say there are people who will say that you just keep spending money, but the basic principles which the Honorable Prime Minister has followed, and that is the wisest decision. I would say that is the wisest decision he has taken, that never spend beyond your means, because that will keep you in good state. And yet the road of fiscal consolidation is being actively followed by the Honorable Finance Minister, where it is so evident the way fiscal deficit has come off. The roadmap is very clear and transparent approach, unlike in the previous regime, where they were so opaque that everything you cannot take it in your fiscal deficit calculation. But today I can say with conviction, and so the street, not only me, so the street would say that, yes, there is no opaqueness, there is a clarity, and everything is loud and clear what comes into the fiscal deficit number, and the deficit is known to everyone, and the fiscal consolidation, the roadmap is so evident for everyone to see. And it all, I think I must compliment the Honorable Finance Minister for being so clear, so transparent, that she lends confidence and comfort to every global investors. And that's why the portfolio investment is growing, FDI is growing, GDP is growing, FDI is growing, the export is growing. What else? Credit growth is growing. And even though our focus yet, that one cylinder we still not has really fired to its potential, is the private investment. The government has taken initiative, burden on the shoulder of the government, that yes, they will make all the commitment which needs to ensure that the economy is booming. So 7.5 trillion rupees has been committed, all-time large, 18 years, highest in 18 years in terms of percentage of GDP.
Please wind up now.
2.9% of the GDP which has been allocated, budgetary allocation for...
Party has 4 more speakers.
Yes, sir, but I'm concluding, sir. For 2.9% of GDP is huge, it's the highest in 18 years. Why? Because the government feels that that it is, if we start investing, spending money, they not only support the economy, but it will also give confidence to private investors, and they will also start investing together with us. And it is slowly seen, because the credit growth number also suggests that private investment is coming back slowly. Secondly, sir, last thing I will say, tax collection to GDP is 10.9%, as against our budgeted number for 2020 FY22 was 9.9%. That only shows the meticulous exercise which is being done by the Finance Minister and under the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister is for everyone to see. And today, I must not only strengthen our hand and the hand of the Honorable Prime Minister by supporting this, all our colleagues will support, but also take this opportunity to compliment for presenting a wonderful budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sri Jafar Islam. Now, the next speaker is Sri P. Chidambaram.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for calling me to speak on behalf of the Congress. I'm happy that the Appropriations Bill and the Finance Bill are taken together. I believe it gives us a fairly wide canvas to speak on the economic and financial situation of the country. On the Finance Bill, I have a few points, and I'll be very brief on each point, knowing that I have very few minutes left. The Income Tax Act has 298 sections if you do not count the sections with suffixes like A, B, AA, double B, etc. And it has 14 schedules. The Finance Bill has 125 sections, clauses, of which 84 pertain to amendments to the Income Tax Act. And the Honorable Finance Minister has moved 39 amendments to the 125 amendments in the Amendment Bill. Now, honestly, every member is to search his heart and say whether anyone understands these things. I did not. I spent a lot of time trying to understand, and I can't say I understand it. This is a legacy issue. I concede that. This has been going on year after year after year. But this must stop. This government claims that it will dump all old legacies. This is one legacy this government must dump immediately. And I think the entire Income Tax Act must be replaced by a direct taxes code. When we were in government, I had helped draft a direct taxes code. Then the Honorable Mr. Pranam Mukherjee tried to improve it. When I returned to the Finance Ministry, I tried to improve it. There are 3 versions of a direct taxes code. Many of the provisions will be outdated. So get rid of all of them. But please bring a direct taxes code immediately. No one benefits from this Income Tax Act except the chartered accountants and the lawyers. Specific points, sir. Firstly, what are you doing about charities? Now, the most famous clause in the Income Tax Act is Section 10, Clause 23C. In the printed book, it occupies 8 pages. The Finance Bill has amendments which run to 9 pages. So an 8-page clause is being amended by a 9-page bill. And subsection 23C alone occupies 9 pages. That is exempt income, including charities. And then we have sections 11 and 12, under which income from charities are exempt. They are subject to conditions in section 12 capital A, 12 capital A, capital B, and section 13. And the Honorable Finance Minister has once again amended section 12 capital A. And there is another section called 115 capital T, capital D, which is about accreted income. Now, a day will come when a charity or a religious institution, which is a charity, or an institution, a trust, which is a charity, will say, let's get out of these clutches of this Income Tax Act. If we have an income, let's pay the tax at 10% or 20% or 30%, whichever is the applicable rate. Let's get out of the Income Tax Act. Most charities today, most trusts today are crippled by these provisions and the repeated amendments year after year after year. Please clean up these provisions. If you believe that charities and trusts have a place in this country, let them function with a reasonable degree of independence and light regulation. This is no way to encourage charities and trusts. If I was starting a charity or a trust, I will say, I'll pay my tax, just leave me out of the Income Tax Act. And this whole concept of accreted income is very regressive. If the exemption is cancelled under 12A or 12AA, if it's cancelled, the entire income which had been exempt for the past several years is now deemed as accreted income, and on that accreted income you'll have to pay a tax. I think these are gross provisions. These are burdensome provisions. This is not the way to encourage large charities, large trusts. Yes, if there are misconducting charities and trusts, take action. But don't stifle, don't throttle the throat of charities and trusts by these provisions. The next provision is this novel concept called faceless assessment. Sir, earlier there was an assessing officer. He knew the assessee's history. He has the entire records with him. The assessees may have been an assessee for the last 30 years or 40 years or 50 years. He knows his history and then he will deal with the assessment. There are enough provisions to ensure that no income escapes assessment. Today we introduced a faceless assessment. We don't know who the assessing officer is. We don't know where he is. We don't know whether he has all the past records of the last 20 or 30 years. We don't know what assistance he gets. How is this an improvement? Of course, some people will argue a faceless assessment is a great improvement. According to me, this is a regressive provision. Numerous people have complained to me that this faceless assessment has put them through enormous hardship because we don't even know who's hearing the matter, who's deciding the matter, what records he has. The amusing part is the National Faceless Assessment Center has 3 units. There is an assessment unit, there is a technical unit, there is a verification unit. I ask honorable members, if you have the time and the inclination, go through those provisions. By the time an assessment is completed, if there are queries, submissions, clarifications, it will go from unit to unit to unit. From faceless center to the assessment unit, back to the faceless center, to the technical unit, back to the faceless center, to the verification unit, back to the faceless center, back to this faceless assessing officer. This is completely regressive. I'm sure sooner than later, the Honorable Finance Minister will recognize that this is not a progressive step, this is not a liberal step, and this is causing huge hardship to SSC. The next provision I want to draw the Honorable Finance Minister's attention is Section 149(1)(b). And now this is the time for reopening assessments. Earlier, the time limit was 4 years, but the assessing officer had 6 years under certain circumstances. Now, last year, the finance bill reduced the second part to 3 years. 2 years and 3 years. You can't, you have to open it within 3 years, but you can open it beyond 3 years under certain circumstances. It was a great relief to a lot of people because past assessments will not be reopened beyond 3 years. But this year, somebody in the CBDT decided that we should tighten this. I don't know if it escaped the scrutiny of all the board members of the CBDT. Today you have said it will be open beyond 3 years and reopened up to 10 years. If the income that has escaped assessment is in the form of an asset, or is it in the form of an expenditure related to an occasion, or is it relatable to an entry in the books? Now I spent about 10 minutes trying to think of what else can they have. If income has escaped assessment, it should be either an asset or it should be an expenditure which has been incurred. You had an income, escaped income, and you spent it, or it has to relate to an entry. What else can it there be? So virtually in every case, you will reopen it beyond 3 years, up to 10 years, if the assessing officer or now the National Faceless Assessment Center decides, in his case, we will reopen beyond 3 years. Now this amendment is regressive. This defeats the purpose for which you reduced the time limit to 3 years. Please reconsider this assessment. This amendment is going to cause huge hardship and a huge amount of litigation. Now finally, sir, what shape the Finance Act as amended and as amended by the Lok Sabha will take, nobody can visualize until our publishers, Universal Publishers, publishes the book. Nobody can understand what it is. So we are all waiting for the Income Tax Act as amended and as amended last year and as amended this year to be published so we can make sense of it. But believe me, I speak as a lawyer, and I also know several chartered accountants have asked me to say this in the House. You cannot today apply the Income Tax Act as amended this year. You will have to have all the books of every year, because there are sunset clauses, there are prospective clauses, there are retrospective clauses. For some assessment years, last year's amendment will apply. For some assessment years, 2 years ago, amendment will apply. For some assessment years, the prospective amendments will apply. It has become a complete minefield. Nobody escapes from this minefield. All you find is a lot of people crippled when they walk through this minefield. Please, I appeal on behalf of the House and on behalf of all the taxpayer community, please replace this. Let us assume it is a legacy issue. Please replace this with a clear, clean, simple direct taxes code. I must compliment the Finance Minister for introducing 139 8 capital A, which is what is called an updated assessment within a period of 2 years, although it is severely restricted. You can update your assessment only if you offer to pay more tax. If you are asking for reduction of tax, you can't update your assessment. If you're asking for a refund, you can't update your assessment. Now, whoever thought of this, there was a simpler way. Why do you have to touch your nose by taking your hand through your around your neck? You can touch it straight. All that they have to do is say, put the number of times you can file a revised assessment, which is now any number of times, limited to say 2. And give a time limit, 12 months, 18 months. Any SSC can file a revised assessment only for a maximum of 2 times, twice, and within a period of 12 months or 18 months. That's a much simpler provision. On the one hand, you have a revised assessment provision in which you can offer to pay more tax, claim more refund, or reduce your tax. On the one hand, you have an updated assessment provision under which you can only offer more tax. Now, the proof of the pudding is the eating. Let us see how many people file an updated assessment and offer more tax. I think the simpler approach is to allow a revised assessment for a limited number of times for a limited period. So I'm done with the Finance Act. You can speak on it as many sections you can take and as many hours you can speak, but I don't intend to speak on that. And we'll see how it operates in assessment year 22-23 and what kind of amendments will be brought next year to correct what you found are anomalies in this year's amendment and last year's assessment. I want to go to the appropriations bill. Now, honorable member who spoke before me said that our direct tax revenues have increased. Now, these are the numbers I have. I've taken it from budget at a glance. In 2013-14, after about 3-4 years, I think it's about 2009-10, for the first time, direct taxes revenue as a proportion of GDP exceeded the indirect tax revenue. And in 2013-14, when the previous government demitted office and the new government took over, the numbers are 5.6% of GDP was direct tax and 4.4% of GDP was indirect tax. This is progressive taxation. Direct taxes as a proportion increases and indirect taxes as a proportion of GDP decreases. This is the right direction. Now, this direction continued up to 2016-17. In 2016-17, sadly, indirect tax as a proportion of GDP crossed direct tax as a proportion of GDP. And I had cautioned it even then, this is a bad trend, reverse this. Indirect taxes as a proportion of GDP should not cross direct taxes as a proportion of GDP. Actually, direct taxes must increase. Now, this year, 2021-22, according to a budget at glance, both have become equal, 5.4% and 5.4%. Next year, the finance minister expects that direct taxes will go up from 5.4 to 5.5, and indirect taxes as a proportion will come down from 5.4 to 5.2, which means we are reversing the bad trend that has been set in the last 5 or 6 years, which is good, and I hope the government achieves this. But, mark this, total of indirect taxes and direct taxes touched 11.2% in 2017-18. This year, it is 10.8%, and next year, it will come down to 10.7%. If your total taxes as a proportion of GDP falls by as much as 0.4% or 0.5%, there is something seriously wrong with your tax policies and tax administration. Taxes as a proportion of GDP are low in India, comparable to other developed countries and other emerging economies. We should increase our taxes as a proportion of GDP, but unfortunately, the trend is not very encouraging. I want to utter the word of caution again, that if your tax as a proportion of GDP does not grow, and if your direct taxes as a proportion of GDP does not grow, it means that people are accumulating income and wealth and not paying enough taxes, whereas the large mass of people who pay indirect taxes are bearing the bulk of the burden. The burden must be shared equitably. People must pay taxes, but the rich must pay more. The people who accumulate wealth must pay more. Last time I spoke on the budget, I did point out how the wealth of the top 1% has increased astronomically by 20 lakh crore in 1 year. So this is a bad trend. This is not a good trend and nothing to be proud about. Then I have another question. According to the budget at a glance, 2021-22, at current prices, the GDP will be 232 lakh crore. In 2022-23, it will be 258 lakh crore. And the budget at a glance correctly calculates nominal growth, underline nominal growth at 11.2%. Now, I want to ask the Honorable Finance Minister, does this estimate of 11.2% growth, which was made on the 1st of February 2022, have you had an opportunity to review it? There is now the Ukraine war. Supply chains have been choked. The shipping rates have gone up astronomically. There is a chip shortage. There is a shortage of containers. There is a shortage of credit. World trade will be affected. And in fact, the IMF has estimated that the GDP of every country will be down between 0.5% to 2%. Now, given all these developments in the last 8 weeks, are you still confident your nominal GDP will indeed grow by 11.2%? I don't wish ill. I wish it grows 11.2%, but I have serious reservations whether in the changed circumstances in the year beginning on 1st of April, it will actually grow at 11.2%. Now, assuming it grows at 11.2%, is the government still persisting with its projection that real GDP growth will be 9.5%, as it was said originally, then revised to 9%, as said subsequently, or as the chief economic advisor has said, 8%. Take any of these numbers. Is real GDP growth next year, will it be 9.5% or 9% or 8%? I think any of these three numbers is no longer credible. And I'll tell you why it is no longer credible. If nominal GDP grows at 11.2, take the smallest of the three numbers, 8%. Real GDP 8%, nominal GDP 11.2. Implied deflator, which is equal to the inflation, will be 3.2. Does anyone believe in the changed circumstances, inflation in India will in 22-23 be only 3.2? If it is 9, implied inflation is only 2.2. If it is 9.5, implied inflation is only 1.7. That will be heaven. That will be heaven. We are not yet at the doors of heaven. I seriously doubt the estimate that India's real GDP will grow at 9% or 8%. And I'll tell you why. In February, WPI was 13.1%. CPI was 6.1%. Food inflation was 5.9%. Manufacturing inflation was 9.8%. And fuel and light inflation, before these 5 days of increase in petrol and diesel prices, was already 8.7%. If food inflation, manufacturing inflation, fuel and light inflation are all close to 6% and above, and if CPI is over 6% and WPI is over 13%, how do you say with a straight face that inflation next year will be about 2 to 3%? These numbers are no longer credible, and I would urge the Honorable Finance Minister, it's not her fault that there is a war in Ukraine, but you must reassess. You must be resilient, you must be nimble, and reassess these growth projection figures and tell us, not today, tell us sometime, tell Parliament, what are the more realistic numbers of nominal growth and real growth. The final point is, I heard the Honorable Finance Minister emphasize once again in the Lok Sabha that this government believes that government capital expenditure will be a main driver of growth. I wish them well. But let's look at the numbers. The numbers are not inspiring. The rhetoric is inspiring, but the numbers are not inspiring. Let me tell you the numbers. In 2021-22, central government capital expenditure in the BE was 5,54,236 crore. In the revised estimate, it was shown as 6,02,711 crore, but actually that's not the correct number, because there is a small print footnote. The footnote says 51,971 crore was repayment of debt for Air India. That's not capital expenditure. by no method of accounting is a repayment of debt capital expenditure. You deduct that 51,971. The revised estimate of capital expenditure is therefore 5,50,840 crore. The BE was 5,54,000 crore. The revised estimate was 5,50,000 crore. So actually in the year that is coming to an end on 31st March, you spent 4,000 crore less than what you had estimated. Now, this was a difficult year, and there are many reasons why government capital expenditure never achieves the target that the finance minister or the prime minister or the cabinet decide. There are so many bottlenecks in government expenditure, so many levels of decision making, so much paperwork, and so much hesitancy in clearing projects, be that as it may. For next year, the Honorable Finance Minister has projected a capital expenditure of 7,50,246 crore. We were all very impressed when she read out that number. And she claimed that it is a point to point, it's an increase of 35%. Of course, that proportion is wrong. Whether we apply to the BE of this year or the RE of this year, that proportion is wrong, but I won't get into the arithmetic. The 7,50,246 crore is not a correct number. You have included, I raised this question when I spoke last, and I expect an answer. Have you included, let me rephrase it, have you included in 7,50,246 crore the 1 lakh crore that you will allow the states to borrow additionally for their capital expenditure? That's what the budget speech says. I think you have included, but to be fair and polite, I will not say you have included. I'll turn it around and ask it, have you included 1 lakh crore in 7,50,246 crore? If you have included this 1 lakh crore, then this will be counted as capital expenditure by the states if they borrow this 1 lakh and show it in their budgets. How can it be capital expenditure of the states as well as capital expenditure of the center? So if you have included this 1 lakh crore in 7,50,246 crore, my respectful submission is the real number is 6,50,246 crore. Over the current year's revised true estimate of 5,50,840 crore, it is an increase of exactly 1 lakh crore. A 1 lakh crore additional capital expenditure next year. What is it like? It'll be a mosquito bite. Your GDP is 258 lakh crore, in which a 1 lakh crore additional capital expenditure, if it materializes, will make no difference. I'm not saying you should not spend the 1 lakh crore. Please spend this additional 1 lakh crore. But this cannot be the driver of growth. The driver of growth can only be if private investment is the main driver. Household savings, people's savings, channelized into private investment can only be the true driver of economic growth. Government capital expenditure can supplement private capital expenditure, but unless private capital expenditure is stimulated, triggered, boosted, this will not make a difference. In fact, if the GDP, your government capital expenditure is barely 2.52%, 2.52% won't make a difference. We need a much larger investment that can only come from private investment, and private investment can only come if there are private savings, household savings channelized into investment. I want to ask the government finally, have you lost faith in private investors? Or are private investors lost faith in investment in India? They are investing abroad. So somehow there is a lack of faith. Either private investors have lost faith in investing in India, or the government has lost faith in the private investor that they will invest in India. Please go into it. This will not give you the kind of growth we need. We need high growth. I'm cautioning the government once again, respectfully, you will not get 8%, you will not get 9%, you will not get 9.5%. The world is going through a churning. IMF has lowered everybody's growth rate by 0.5 to 2.5. I think we must settle for a lower growth, but we must achieve that lower growth. That lower growth can only be achieved if you encourage private savings, household savings, and find ways to channelize that into private investment. I'm afraid the year ahead is a difficult year. I wish the government well. I wish the Honorable Finance Minister well. But it is a difficult year, and it's better be forewarned that it will be a difficult year. It requires sound tax policies, sound financial management, and sound economic management. I wish the government well. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Professor Manoj Kumar Jha.
शुक्रिया उपसभापति महोदय। ये एक अद्भुत तो खूबसूरत लम्हा होता है कि भूतपूर्व वित्त मंत्री और वर्तमान वित्त मंत्री के बीच में आप दो पाटन के बीच में आ जाएं, और बीच में भूतपूर्व प्रधानमंत्री भी हैं, लेकिन ताल्लुक वित्तीय मामलों से था। इसलिए माननीय उपसभापति महोदय, मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स पे पहले भी बहुत कुछ कहा जा चुका है, ग्रीन शूट्स पे भी। मैं कुछ जो अधिकांश रिपोर्ट्स आई हैं इन दिनों एक अच्छे बेसलाइन के साथ, मैं चाहता हूं कि मैं उस रिपोर्ट की कुछ चीज़ों को आपके माध्यम से माननीय फिनेंस मिनिस्टर के सामने रखूं, इस आग्रह के साथ कि अगले वर्ष इसी वक्त में जब हम फाइनेंस और अप्रोप्रिएशन बिल पे बात कर रहे हों तो मैं उनसे पूछ सकूं कि पिछले बार के सूचकांक में और इस बार के सूचकांक में कितना फर्क आया या नहीं आया। सो आई नो modern states are organized around the three flags these days. One is capitalism, globalization, and neoliberalism. So they have scant regard for issues like human rights, for social sector spending, for all kinds of things which affect the life and times of common people. I know this reality, sir. Irrespective of which political party is in power in last 30 years. But what I wish to underline, today is 24th March. Can I request through you, Honorable Deputy Chairman, sir, little bit of house being in order. So, why I say this, today is 24th March. I was not here in the morning, 28th March. Sorry, I was not in the morning. I was traveling from Bagdogra airport to Delhi. What I saw in and around my Kishanganj area, Aradia, Purnia, I would come to that little later, sir. But any kind of political policy intervention would be meaningless, sir, if it does not change the life of ordinary people. मैं खास तौर पर सीमांचल पूर्णिया अररिया जिले की बात कर रहा हूं सर, कोसी के इलाके की बात कर रहा हूं। मैं सिर्फ इतना कहना चाहता हूं कि सरकार को हस्तक्षेप करना होगा फौरी तौर पर। सीमांचल कोसी विकास बोर्ड बनाए। मैं इसको कह करके स्पेसिफिक से बाकी चीजों पर, एक एमएसएमई का स्फूर्ति स्कीम है सर, स्कीम बहुत अच्छी है, लेकिन जमीन पर अगर आप उतरते देखें, जमीन के खरीद में उससे लेकर के बाकी चीजों की उपलब्धता का इतनी बड़ी दिक्कत है सर। सर अद्भुत दौर है, अकल्पनीय दौर है, अविश्वसनीय दौर भी है। अभी हमारे एक मित्र भाजपा के कह रहे थे, मैंने पहले भी कहा कि प्रधानमंत्री जी दुनिया में सबसे लोकप्रिय हैं। चलिए, लेकिन ये अविश्वसनीय अकल्पनीय इसलिए है कि हम हंगर इंडेक्स पर भी सर दुनिया में नाम कमा रहे हैं, 101वें स्थान पर है 116 मुल्कों में। कुपोषण के मामले में, खुशहाली के मामले में, तो ये अद्भुत नहीं लगता है क्या कि इन मानकों पर हम पिछड़ रहे हैं, लेकिन एक मानक पर अगर प्रधानमंत्री जी की लोकप्रियता का इंसानी जिंदगी के हालात से कोई ताल्लुक नहीं है, तो सर मैं आगे क्या कहूं। सर, ऑक्सफैम की रिपोर्ट कहती है, ऑक्सफैम की इनइक्वालिटी रिपोर्ट कहती है कि हमारी दिक्कत क्या है ना कि हमारे यहाँ जो इकोनॉमिक आउटकम्स हैं उसके पीछे 3 चीजें हैं सर। एक तो इंडिया का टैक्स रेजीम, दूसरा डिक्लाइनिंग एम्फेसिस ऑन सोशल सेक्टर, एंड थर्ड पुश टुवर्ड्स इंक्रीजिंग प्राइवेटाइजेशन। मेरे कई मित्रों ने आज बात की सर वाइजैग स्टील प्लांट की, मैं खुद देख करके आया हूं वाइजैग स्टील प्लांट। जितने सारे पीएसयूज हैं सर इन्हें पब्लिक क्यों कहा गया था? पब्लिक सेक्टर अंडरटेकिंग। पब्लिक सेक्टर अंडरटेकिंग का कुछ की अहमियत थी, उसके पीछे कुछ प्रतिबद्धताएं थी। इन दिनों हम क्या देख रहे हैं सर, गिव ए बैड नेम टू ए डॉग एंड देन किल हिम। ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए। पब्लिक सेक्टर, जो कि मेरे कई मित्रों ने कहा, उससे देश को एक खास किस्म की उम्मीदें थी जो शायद प्राइवेट सेक्टर फुलफिल ना कर पाए। जिस प्रकार से हम प्राइवेटाइजेशन को दे रहे हैं, मैं आपको दोष नहीं देता हूं, आपने वो विरासत में वो राजनीति ले ली है, नियो लिबरल फ्लैग को आपने भी उठा लिया है। लेकिन एक दिन याद करिएगा कि सदन के सारे लोग, किसी भी दल के हो, हम बैठ करके मरसिया गाएंगे कि हमने ये क्या किया, हमने अपनी सारी पब्लिक सेक्टर एसेट्स को, यूनिट्स को बेच के रख दिया। इसका परिणाम क्या होगा माननीय उपसभापति महोदय? आज हम आर्टिकल 15 क्लॉज 4 की बात करते हैं, आर्टिकल 16 क्लॉज 4 की बात करते हैं, दैट इज रिजर्वेशन इन पब्लिक एम्प्लॉयमेंट। आपने वो सोर्स ही खत्म कर देना, फिर कहां चर्चा होगी सर? सर, पता चला कि 2020 से 2021 के बीच में बिलियनियर को हिंदी में अरबपति बोलते हैं ना, अरबपति, अरबपतियों की संख्या में अद्भुत इजाफा हुआ सर। सर, मुझे कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, बन नहीं पाऊंगा कभी, मैं जानता हूं, लेकिन अरबपति होने से कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। लेकिन सर, जितनी तेजी से अरबपतियों की वृद्धि हो रही है, उतनी ही तेजी से खाकपतियों की वृद्धि हो रही है। सर, प्रॉस्पेरिटी का ट्रिकल डाउन नहीं हो रहा है, पॉवर्टी का ट्रिकल डाउन हो रहा है। तो जो प्रॉस्पेरिटी कॉन्सेंट्रेटेड रह रही है कुछ बिलियनर्स में, और ये मैं नहीं कह रहा हूं सर, ये रिपोर्ट कहती है। सर, कहा जाता है कि 98 जो हिंदुस्तानी हैं, उनकी संपत्ति अगर मिला दिया जाए तो तकरीबन 40 से 45% जो बॉटम के हिंदुस्तानी हैं उसके बराबर। तो संपत्ति और संसाधन की यह असमानता, बजट में उसके लिए कोई प्रोविजन है सर? मुझे नहीं मिला। बजट, मैं मानता हूं ग्रीन शूट्स जरूरी है, ग्रोथ जरूरी है, लेकिन क्या यह जरूरी नहीं कि रोजगार पर भी चर्चा हो? यह बजट रोजगार सृजन कितना करेगा? ये बजट संपत्ति के बंटवारे में इंटरवीन करेगा कि नहीं, या संसाधन का एक डेमोक्रेटिक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन हो उस पर बात करेगा कि नहीं? सर, 2021 में एफएओ की एक रिपोर्ट आई जो कहती है हमारे यहां 200 मिलियन लोग कुपोषित हैं। कुपोषण के आंकड़ों पर हम लोग 0 आवर में बात करते हैं, कभी कभी रविवार फ्राइडे को बात करते हैं। सर, ये जिंदा इंसान के जिंदा मुद्दे हैं। अगर कुपोषण, भूखमरी, इन सब के सूचकांक में हम पीछे हैं, फिर भी वाह वाह हो रहा है, तालियां बज रही हैं। तो मुझे याद आया सर, एक एज ऑफ एंगर लिखी है पंकज मिश्रा जी ने, जिसमें एक बाकुनिन के एक मित्र हर्जन को कोट करते हुए कहते हैं, एज इरा ऑफ मास इल्यूजन। ये मास इल्यूजन का पुनः इरा है जो यूरोप में बहुत पहले था। अगर आपकी नीति और नीयत इल्यूजन क्रिएट करने में है तो ऑप्टिकल इल्यूजन क्रिएट करना आपका गोल हो जाता है। आपकी प्रतिबद्धता इस बात में नहीं है कि आपकी नीतियां और नीयत से आम इंसान के जिंदगी पर क्या असर पड़ता। मैं एक बात कहता हूं सर, प्रतिदिन अब तो मीडिया वाले जब माइक सामने लगाते हैं ना, आज फिर डीजल 80 पैसा बढ़ गया, मैंने कहा मैं क्या बोलूं इस पर यार, लगातार बोलता हूं, असर ही नहीं है, तो थक सा गए हैं। और हम ही नहीं थक गए हैं सर, जिन पर मार पड़ रही वो भी थक गए हैं, नंब हो गए हैं। और नंबनेस अगर आपके नागरिक में आ जाए तो ये अच्छा संकेत नहीं है, क्योंकि नंबनेस किस दिन ज्वालामुखी बन के फूटेगा इसका प्रेडिक्शन किसी ज्योतिषी के हाथ में नहीं है। सर, नहीं सर, एक बात मैं कहूं, क्योंकि सर ये कोई खास गंभीर टिप्पणी इन्होंने नहीं की, मैं बता ही देता हूं। सर, 5 किलो राशन, उससे हमें एतराज नहीं है, लेकिन सर उस राशन को पकाने के लिए गैस सिलेंडर चाहिए, उसमें सरसों तेल डालना होता है या कोई और तेल डालना होता है। सर, अगर हम आप सरसों तेल की कीमत से परेशान हैं, सर मैं बात कर रहा हूं एक आम शहरी की, अगर आप सर, मैं एक और चीज कहना चाहता हूं आपके माध्यम से, आय और शक्ति की असमानता जिसके लिए हमारे बजट में कोई प्रोविजन नहीं है सर, इससे बहुत सारी चीजें आहत होती हैं, प्रभावित होती हैं। शिक्षा, स्वास्थ्य, रोजगार की बात तो मैं करता ही नहीं सर, क्योंकि रोजगार मांगने पर लाठियां बरसती हैं। सर, कुछ राज्यों ने ओल्ड पेंशन स्कीम की बात की है। मैं आग्रह करूंगा, आप सबको भी दबाव आता होगा अपने कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट से कि हमारे ओल्ड पेंशन स्कीम के बारे में बात की जाए। ये वक्त है सर कि सदन साझा रूप से ओल्ड पेंशन स्कीम की बहाली के बारे में सोचे, अन्यथा मैं समझता हूं कि बहुत दिक्कत होगी। सर, अक्सर मैं देखता हूं कि बिहार के बारे में, बिहार राज्य से आता हूं सर, हमारे उस तरफ भी कई बिहार के लोग हैं सर। बिहार के लिए पहले भी मैं कह चुका हूं सर, स्पेशल स्टेटस, अगर आपके जो मानक मौजूदा है सर, उस मानकों को बदलिए। बिहार की स्थिति बहुत खराब है। सरकार किसी की भी हो, बिहार की जो बीमारी है उसको जब तक इन्फ्यूज नहीं करिएगा, एक मैसिव पैकेज, एक स्पेशल स्टेटस, सर बिहार को रिकवर करने में बहुत दिक्कत होगी। और बीमार बिहार देश को भी 5 ट्रिलियन पे जाने नहीं देगा कभी, आप पहुंच ही नहीं पाएंगे। मैंने वित्त मंत्री साहिबा को पहले भी कहा था कि अगर आप पहुंच भी गई गलती से तो बड़े अकेलेपन का एहसास होगा, क्योंकि बिहार बहुत पीछे छूट जाएगा। तो मैं चाहता हूं कि बिहार में एरिया वाइज हमें तय करना होगा कि कहां हम किस तरह की इंडस्ट्री का निवेश करवाएं। और जैसे मैंने कोसी सीमांचल विकास बोर्ड की बात की, छोटी छोटी चीजें हैं सर। एएमयू कैंपस है किशनगंज में, उसके लिए कोई चिंता नहीं है, लोग धरना प्रदर्शन करते हैं, बात वहीं खत्म हो जाती है। सर एक मैं कोट करना चाहता हूं थॉमस पिकेटी को। थॉमस पिकेटी कैपिटल इन 21st सेंचुरी में कहते हैं, एंड आई कोट हिम, व्हेन द रिटर्न ऑन इन्वेस्टमेंट्स, I wish to re-emphasize so, when the return on investments is higher than the rate of economic growth of the country, more wealth gets accumulated in the hands of a few who owns the means of production. सर हम देख रहे हैं इस देश में सत्ता और धन का कहां संकेंद्रण हो रहा है। ये संकेंद्रण हो सकता है मेरे कई दोस्तों को आज अच्छा लग रहा हो, लेकिन अल्टीमेटली अगर हम देखेंगे सर, तो ये संकेंद्रण मैं समझता हूं कि एक बहुत मुश्किल हालात में हम सबको ले जाएगा। मैंने पिछले दफे भी कहा था, कंक्लूडिंग में मैं यही कहना चाहूंगा, माननीय उपसभापति महोदय, वित्त मंत्री जी अभी नहीं है, मेरा सिर्फ इतना आग्रह होगा सर कि कोई भी बजट हो उसका सीधा ताल्लुक दिखना चाहिए कि रोजगार की जो बेरोजगारी का आलम है सर, ये हमें डराता नहीं है। मान लीजिए प्रधानमंत्री जी बहुत लोकप्रिय हैं, लेकिन क्या बेरोजगारी हर व्यक्ति को नहीं परेशान कर रही है? हंगर इंडेक्स नहीं परेशान कर रहा है, प्रेस फ्रीडम इंडेक्स नहीं परेशान कर रहा है। इतनी सारी चीजें अगर परेशानी में है, मान लेंगे हम भी साथ में खड़े होकर के, लेकिन इन चीजों के लिए एक प्रतिबद्ध तरीका अपनाइए, ताकि अगले बरस जब हम बात करें, अगले बरस जब हम बैठे, तो कम से कम हम ये कह सकें गर्व से कि भुखमरी में हिंदुस्तान ने कितने पायदान छलांग लगा करके ऊपर चले गया, या मैं खुशहाली इंडेक्स में हम ऊपर आ गए। और आखिरी में सर, असल में क्या होता है सर, बड़ी सत्ता आती है, बड़ी ताकत आती है, तो बड़े मुगालते भी आते हैं। बस इतना कहना चाहूंगा, तुमसे पहले जो एक यहां तख्त नशी था, उसको भी अपने खुदा होने पे इतना ही यकीन था। जय हिंद सर।
धन्यवाद। नेक्स्ट स्पीकर इज बीरेंद्र प्रसाद बसिया।
Thank you, Chairman, sir. Sir, I raise here to support the appraisal bill and finance bill, sir. I must compliment Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Finance Minister, in this critical time, they presented a growth-oriented budget which is given to focus of economic growth of the country, infrastructure development of the country, procurement in the defense sector through the domestic production, agriculture-friendly budget. Budget also is for the friendly for the farmers. This everything is try to focus in her budget in this critical time, sir. Sir, due to the continuous effort of the government under the leadership of Prime Minister, the economical condition of our country today have a sound economic condition, sir. Our economic growth is increased, sir. Right now, I hear explanation given by the former Honorable Finance Minister Sidambaramji. He has some doubt about the growth of the government projection. Another 3 months left, sir. I believe and I heard the target given by the government for the economic growth of the country will be covered this 3 months, sir. In next financial year, government has given an ambitious plan, ambitious move for the economical growth, sir. And I am quite sure, sir, under the leadership of the Prime Minister, under the guidance of the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister doing good job, and we have achieved the target provided in the budget, sir. Honorable former Prime Minister Sidambaramji has reported in his speech spoken about the oil inflation. So it is known to everyone this year. Yes, oil prices increased. Yes, last 5 days oil prices increased. Sir, this is not in our hands, sir. This is not in hands of the government of India, sir. Due to the Ukraine year, due to the international market, due to the increase of the crude oil price day by day, we are suffering, sir. So we cannot blame this government, sir. But I'm thankful for this government. This government has decided wonderful steps, sir, to import crude oil and gas with a subsidized rate from the Russia, sir. I'm sure if this crude oil and gas is coming imported, then definitely inflation will be coming down, sir. So, for this, with the due respect to the former Prime Minister Sidambaramji, I like to say we cannot blame this government due to the crude inflation. This crude inflation only due to the Ukraine war, sir. Sir, no doubt about it, sir. Our foreign exchange deposit in our country is increased today, sir. Sir, in her budget, Honorable Finance Minister has given importance to the capital expenditure. 30%, there will be 30% hike in the capital expenditure. If this target will be fulfilled, definitely it will be a wonderful for the economic growth of the country, sir. When capital expenditure is increased, sir, new port is coming, new airport is coming, new road is coming. So, lots of scope is coming and more employment generation will come up which will be helpful to resolve, to some extent, resolve the unemployment issue of the country, sir. Sir, unemployment, no doubt, is a big problem of the country, sir. It is not today's problem, sir. Last several years, we are facing this problem, sir. Sir, government has decided to create 60 lakhs new jobs in the current year, sir. Within a year, sir. Sir, if this is coming, no doubt, sir, it will be helpful. It will be helpful for the help the unemployment youth of the country, sir. Atmanirbharshil Bharat, sir. This is today not a slogan, sir. This is not only a slogan, sir. Actually, it is implemented in our country today, sir. In defense sector, I am coming to the defense sector, sir. Every year, we are imported arms and ammunition from the international market, from the foreign countries, sir. And huge amount from our budget is going. But, sir, no issue, because sovereignty is country is utmost we have to do to protect our country from our enemy country like Pakistan and China, others. Definitely, we have to strengthen our defense, sir. So we have to procure our arms and ammunition from the foreign countries, sir. But now government has decided, this government has decided procurement for the defense equipment for the domestic production, sir. The 68% of the defense capital procurement budget has been allotted towards the local procurement, sir. It is in the line with the vocal for the local push, and it will certainly boost the domestic defense industry, sir. So, I very rightly said, sir, Atmanirbharshil Bharat, this is not only slogan properly which is implemented in our country today, sir. Defense sector, to encourage our domestic production, government has decided more than 60% procurement of the through the local production, sir. And already in our country, sir, two defense industry production corridor work in our country, sir. One is at, sir, Uttar Pradesh, another is at Tamil Nadu. Honorable Finance Minister, we have took a very more ambitious plan to encourage domestic industry in the defense. I request you, if necessary, try to move more local defense industrial corridor in other parts of the country to meet the requirements, sir. Sir, this budget has given importance to the farmers, sir. Through this budget, we have decided to procure wheat and rice from the farmers. And, sir, one more, like do I say with this, sir, India is a welfare country, sir. To help the people, citizens of the country, it is the duty of our government, sir. Health is the priority sector in our country. As a welfare state, we have to give them proper health care to our people, sir. I must compliment, I must salute this government. India is the one country of the world who has vaccinated highest number of the people of our country, sir. No other developed country. In many occasions, we always compare India with the other developed countries, sir. But in the vaccine, India recorded a new record, and we crossed all the developed countries of the world. India is the only country who's vaccinated maximum number of the people, sir. And due to this region, in the last wave of Omicron, India suffered less, sir. This is the credit goes to Honorable Prime Minister, sir. Honorable Prime Minister, under his leadership, this government is doing wonderful work. If you don't like, don't compliment, but you don't criticize. At least you should recognize what this government has done for the improvement to resolve the COVID sector of our country, sir. Northeastern region, every people speak of the northeastern region. Every people speak, our heart is the northeast region.
Mr. Bosia, we are going to adjourn at 6 o'clock. So, will you speak tomorrow and continue your speech, or you are going to conclude now?
I'll conclude within 2-3 minutes, sir, if you allow me.
1 or 2 minutes. Or you can speak, you can continue tomorrow also.
Tomorrow I'll be not here, sir, so.
Please conclude then.
Just 2 minutes, sir. Sir, But when his time is coming to allocate money for Northeastern region, sir, we forget Northeastern region, sir. But when you're speaking, always you're speaking. But this government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, has given new direction, new importance to the Northeastern region, sir. 1,500 crore, the initial budget allocation made for the development of the Northeastern region, sir. This is the initial, sir. So this Honorable Prime Minister has tried to development some Northeastern state. I think we must compliment for this government, sir. Sir, Honorable Madam, all the railway budget tie up with your budget, although there are several discussions of the railway budget, but I must compliment this government again, all the states of the Northeastern region, today have a railway connectivity.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, now I'd like to request, sir, one thing, sir, for the interest of the development, economical development of the country, I'd like to request, through you, sir, try to put one coach factory, railway coach factory in Assam, which will be helped because all the Northeastern regions that today have a railway connectivity, and there is a lots of demand for coach in all the Northeastern regions, sir. So I look through you, Honorable Deputy Chairman, sir. Through you, I like to request government to establish one coach factory in Northeastern region, which will be helpful for the economical development of the country. With this, again, I compliment this government in the critical time for providing, given us a strong budget, good budget, growth-oriented budget, farmer-helpful budget, economic growth budget, infrastructural development budget, and capital expenditure budget. I hope if this speed will continue, definitely we achieve our target 11% in next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Discussion will remain inconclusive and we will continue for tomorrow again. So now I will take up the special mentions. You have only to lay, not to read. Srimati Fulu Devi Netam.
अध्यक्ष महोदय, छत्तीसगढ़ के बस्तर संभाग में केंद्रीय आदिवासी विश्वविद्यालय खोलने के संबंध में मेरा विषय है, मैं ले करती हूँ।
धन्यवाद। डॉक्टर प्रशांत नंदा सामने।
Thank you, sir. The subject of my special mention is uniform and subcategorized renewable energy purchase obligation throughout the country. I lay it.
Thank you. Sri John Brittus, not present. Dr. Fozia Khan, not present. The House stands adjourned to meet at 11 hours on Tuesday, the 29th March 2022.
पहल करें ताकि क्षेत्र का विकास तीव्र गति से हो सके। सभापति जी आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। जय हिंद।
श्रीमती अपरूपा पोद्दार।
ধন্যবাদ স্পিকার সাহেব আমাকে বলবার সুযোগ দেওয়ার জন্য। আমার আরামবাগ লোকসভার তারকেশ্বরে কেন্দ্র বিদ্যালয়ে বিগত 8 বছর ধরে স্টেট গেস্ট হাউসে চলছে এবং ওখানকার ছাত্রছাত্রী এবং যে টিচার্সরা যারা পড়ান তাদেরও ওখানে খুব অসুবিধা হচ্ছে, আর ছাত্রছাত্রীদেরও ওখানে পড়তে খুব অসুবিধা হচ্ছে। নাম্বার অফ স্টুডেন্টস বাড়ছে কিন্তু জায়গা ছোট। রাজ্য সরকার, পশ্চিমবঙ্গ সরকারে আমাদের মাননীয় মুখ্যমন্ত্রী মমতা বন্দ্যোপাধ্যায় অলরেডি জমি দিয়ে দিয়েছে। তা দেওয়া সত্ত্বেও এখনও পর্যন্ত নতুন কেন্দ্র বিদ্যালয় তারকেশ্বরে এখনও পর্যন্ত তৈরির জন্য কোনো স্যাংশন গ্র্যান্ট দেওয়া হয়নি কেন্দ্র সরকারের পক্ষ থেকে। তাই আমি আপনার মাধ্যম দিয়ে আমার এখানকার কেন্দ্র সরকারের শিক্ষামন্ত্রীকে বলছি যে তাড়াতাড়ি এটা গ্র্যান্টটা স্যাংশন করে ওখানে তারকেশ্বরে যেখানে জমি দেওয়া হয়েছে তৈরি করা হোক। ধন্যবাদ।
सभापति महोदय, सबसे पहले तो मैं आपको धन्यवाद दूंगा कि आपने मुझे इस महत्वपूर्ण विषय पे बोलने की इजाज़त। आपके माध्यम से राजस्थान के अजमेर डिस्कॉम में केंद्र सरकार की विद्युत से जुड़ी सौभाग्य योजना में जिम्मेदारों की मिलीभगत से हुए 290 करोड़ से भी अधिक हुए घोटाले की तरफ विद्युत मंत्री का ध्यान आकर्षित करना चाहूँगा। सबसे पहले अजमेर डिस्कॉम के अधीन उदयपुर, अजमेर, बांसवाड़ा, सीकर, भीलवाड़ा, राजसमंद, प्रतापगढ़, चित्तौड़गढ़ जिलों में 53,298 घरों में सोलर सिस्टम के जरिए बिजली पहुंचानी थी और इसके लिए अजमेर डिस्कॉम ने 11 कंपनियों को फरवरी 2019 में टेंडर दिए। वे टेंडर 53,200
संक्षिप्त बोलिए।
एक मिनट
जी।
53,298 सोलर का ही हुआ, लेकिन बाद में 83,183 सोलर सिस्टम, जिनमें से अधिकतर सिस्टम कागजों में ही लगाए गए, वे 29,850 ज़्यादा घरों में सोलर लगाना दिखाकर 104.89 करोड़ का घोटाला किया। मेरी मांग है सभापति महोदय, चूंकि केंद्र की सौभाग्य योजना में ऑफ ग्रिड योजना के अंतर्गत ऐसे घरों में सोलर के जरिए बिजली पहुंचानी थी जहां बिजली तारों के जरिए नहीं पहुंचाई जा सकती। इसमें 60% राशि केंद्र सरकार में, 30% राशि बैंक लोन, 10% राशि संबंधित डिस्कॉम को वहन करनी होती थी, जबकि उपभोक्ताओं से 2 से लेकर 5,000 रुपये तक की अवैध रूप से वसूले गए। सबसे मेरी मांग है, ये केंद्र की योजना थी और 200 करोड़ से ज़्यादा बड़ा घोटाला सौभाग्य योजना के अंदर अजमेर डिस्कॉम ने किया था। इसके अंदर आप FIR करें, केंद्र सरकार CBI FIR करे, CBI जांच हो, इस घोटाले के अंदर जो भी दोषी हो सलाखों के पीछे हो। बहुत बड़ा घोटाला राजस्थान के अंदर केंद्र की योजना के साथ।
मसूदी जी।
बहुत शुक्रिया जनाब। जनाब, जम्मू कश्मीर सरकार ने कुछ महीने पहले कई हज़ार क्लास 4 असामियाँ मुश्तहर की, सिलेक्शन लिस्ट बन गई और सिलेक्शन के बाद ये फैसला हुआ कि ग्रेजुएट जो सिलेक्टीज़ हैं उनको अपॉइंट न किया जाए बल्कि उनको बाहर रखा जाएगा। लेकिन उसके बाद मेरी सूचना है कि कोई 1800 के करीब ग्रेजुएट जो सिलेक्टीज़ थे उनको अपॉइंट किया गया। अगर ऐसा किया गया तो बाकी जो रहे हैं, जो सिलेक्टेड हैं और ग्रेजुएट हैं, उनको भी अपॉइंट किया जाए। उसके अलावा टीचर्स का सिलेक्शन हुआ, सिलेक्शन कंप्लीट हुआ तो उसके बाद ड्यूअल डिग्री की वजह से कुछ एक कमेटी बन गई, उसने जो सिफारिशात दी, 2 डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स का सिलेक्शन में अपॉइंटमेंट्स की गई, सांबा और कठुआ में। लेकिन बाकी जो सिलेक्टीज़ हैं वो अगरचे कमेटी ने उनका भी सिफारिश की थी लेकिन अभी तक उनके अपॉइंटमेंट्स नहीं हुए। तो एक पहली छोटी बात। तो उसके बाद जनाब, हम जम्मू कश्मीर में सबसे बड़ा मसला है हज़ारों मुलाजमीन को जो एनिमल हस्बेंड्री से, फॉरेस्ट से, एग्रीकल्चर से, पेज से और बाकी जो भी महकमे हैं, मिनिमम वेज से निसब दिया जा रहा है, 3,000 से भी कम दिया जा रहा है। तो तकरीबन जब तक रेगुलराइजेशन की प्रोसेस कंप्लीट हो तब तकरीबन तो पालन करते हुए कानून का मिनिमम वेजेस दी जाएं इन सारे मुलाजमीन को जो अभी तक मिनिमम वेज का इंतज़ार किए हुए। इसके अलावा एक और बात भी है जनाब, जो लोकल फार्मासिस्ट जो कानून था उसके तहत मेडिकल असिस्टेंट को भी ये कॉम्पिटेंस थी कि वो एज फार्मासिस्ट काम करे। लेकिन 5 अगस्त के बाद जो नया कानून लागू किया गया उसमें ये मेडिकल असिस्टेंट बाहर हो गई। पहले ही मैंने ज़ीरो आवर के दौरान सवाल पूछा था, उस पर जो मंत्रालय है उन्होंने ये फैसला किया था कि एक अमेंडमेंट लाएंगे फार्मेसी एक्ट ताकि उनको वन टाइम एग्जम्पशन मिले, रिलैक्सेशन मिले। लेकिन अभी तक उस बारे में कोई कार्रवाई नहीं की जा रही है। तो मेरी ये गुजारिश होगी कि उस बारे में कार्रवाई की जाए और ये जो अपॉइंटेड सिलेक्टीज़ हैं, ग्रेजुएट सिलेक्टीज़ फॉर क्लास 4 और जो टीचर्स के लिए सिलेक्टीज़ है उनको भी अपॉइंटमेंट दी जाए। बहुत शुक्रिया।
श्री कराती संगन्ना जी।
सर, respected Speaker, sir. Establishment of EMRS in Koppal constituency, sir. Sir, Speaker sir, I wish to draw your kind attention to the announcement made by the Honorable Finance Minister during the budget speech of the 2021, sir. In Parliament, in the said speech, the Honorable Minister stated the opening of the new Ekalavya Model Residential School across the country, sir. This visionary step was taken by the Honorable Prime Minister and Honorable Finance Minister to provide the best education for the scheduled tribes community students, sir. Those who are not able to get good education, and this new setup will be very much useful to the ST students, sir. By providing quality education, Koppal constituency comes under the Article 371J of the Indian Constitution. In my constituency, Sirguppa, Ballari district and Maski, Raichur district, a blocks comes under the Legislative Assembly of Karnataka MLA. Both are ST reserved constituencies. Therefore, the guidelines commencing of the new school of EMRS are fulfilled. The issued letter of the authority of the Ministry of Tribal Affairs dated 6/9/21 stating that the Sirguppa, Ballari district and Maski, Raichur district blocks of Koppal constituency are do not qualified and not consider the proposal, sir. The said authority issued the letter is not correct, sir. Both our constituency are declared as ST constituency. Therefore, the area is the backward area. The scheme is directly suitable for the said constituency. The
श्री गुरजीत सिंह औजला जी कृपया 1 मिनट में अपनी बात कहिए प्लीज।
ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਸਪੀਕਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੋਲਣ ਦਾ ਮੌਕਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਦੇਸ਼ ਦੀ ਵੰਡ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਜਦੋਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨੂੰ ਨਵੀਂ ਰਾਜਧਾਨੀ ਮਿਲੀ 1948 ਵਿੱਚ ਘੋਸ਼ਿਤ ਹੋਈ, 1966 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਰਿਆਣਾ ਬੰਦ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਾਜਧਾਨੀ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਘੋਸ਼ਿਤ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਗਈ ਹਰਿਆਣਾ ਤੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੀ। ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਤੋਂ ਮੰਗ ਰਹੀ ਕਿ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨੂੰ ਇੰਡੀਪੈਂਡੈਂਟ ਰਾਜਧਾਨੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ, ਹਰਿਆਣੇ ਨੂੰ ਨਵੀਂ ਰਾਜਧਾਨੀ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾਵੇ। 1986 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਾਜੀਵ ਲੌਂਗੋਵਾਲ ਸਮਝੌਤੇ ਦੇ ਤਹਿਤ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਮੰਨਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨੂੰ ਰਾਜਧਾਨੀ ਚੰਡੀਗੜ੍ਹ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾਏਗੀ, ਪਰ ਸਰ ਉਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਇਆ। ਕੱਲ 27 ਮਾਰਚ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਡੇ ਦੇਸ਼ ਦੇ ਗ੍ਰਹਿ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਅਮਿਤ ਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਪੰਜਾਬ 'ਚ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ, ਘੋਸ਼ਣਾ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਸ ਚੰਡੀਗੜ੍ਹ ਦੇ ਮੁਲਾਜ਼ਮ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਸਿਵਲ ਸਰਵਿਸ ਦੇ ਐਕਟ ਦੇ ਅਧੀਨ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੈਂਟਰਲ ਸਿਵਲ ਸਰਵਿਸ ਐਕਟ ਦੇ ਅਧੀਨ ਲੈ ਆਂਦਾ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਨਿੰਦਣਯੋਗ ਹੈ। ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੀ ਭਾਰੀ ਵਿਰੋਧਤਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਸਪੀਕਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਾ ਕਦੀ BSF ਦਾ ਦਾਇਰਾ ਵਧਾਇਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ, ਭਾਖੜਾ ਬੋਰਡ ਮੈਨੇਜਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਿੱਧੀ ਤੇ ਕੇਂਦਰ ਦੀ ਦਖਲਅੰਦਾਜ਼ੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਪੰਜਾਬ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੇਂਦਰ ਦਖਲ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਪੰਜਾਬ ਐਗਰੀਕਲਚਰ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸਿੱਧੇ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਰੱਖੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ। ਔਰ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਰ ਇੱਕ ਮਿੰਟ ਸਰ ਗਵਰਨਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੀਆਂ ਤਾਕਤਾਂ ਵਧਾਈਆਂ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਜੀ 2014 'ਚ ਆਖਦੇ ਸੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੋਆਪਰੇਟ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਵਾਂਗੇ। ਸਰ ਇੱਕ ਮਿੰਟ ਸਰ ਪਲੀਜ਼
ਕੰਕਲੂਡ ਕੀजिए।
ਸਰ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਕੋਆਪਰੇਟਿਵ ਫੈਡਰਲਿਜ਼ਮ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਵਾਂਗੇ, ਸੰਘੀ ਢਾਂਚੇ ਨੂੰ ਮਜ਼ਬੂਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਪਰ ਹੁਣ ਤੇ ਸਰ ਸਾਡਾ ਸੰਘ ਕੱਟਿਆ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ, ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਧੋਖਾ ਆ। ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਧੋਖਾ ਬਰਦਾਸ਼ਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਦਾ
माननीय सभापति महोदय, मैं केंद्रीय विद्यालय की बात रख रहा हूँ। मेरे चुनाव क्षेत्र में 2 बड़ी सिटी है, पिंपरी चिंचवड सिटी और पनवेल सिटी, और केंद्रीय विद्यालय 6, लगभग 6 केंद्रीय विद्यालयों में करीबन हर साल 600 से 700 यहाँ एडमिशन के लिए अर्जी आती है और 10 सीटें। मैं आपके माध्यम से ये कहना चाहता हूँ तो केंद्रीय विद्यालय की सीट पूरी तरह से खत्म की जाए, क्योंकि हमें बहुत तकलीफ होती है सभापति महोदय जी। 600 और 700 अगर वहाँ सीट के लिए एप्लीकेशन हमारे पास आते हैं, 10 सीट के लिए 600 नहीं 10 सीट है, 10 सीट में 690 नाराज हो जाते, हमें इससे तकलीफ होती है। मैं आपसे मांग करता हूँ एक तो सीट बढ़ाया जाए, अन्यथा ये पूरी सीट केंद्रीय विद्यालय की खत्म किया जाए।
श्री TR पारिवेंद्र जी, पारिवेंद्र जी, श्री ET मोहम्मद बशीर साहब।
Sir, thank you very much. Sir, it is really shocking to know that the names of martyrs who participated in the Malabar Rebellion, which was a bold and brave struggle against British Empire, their names is going to be removed from the Dictionary of Freedom Martyrs as decided by ICHR. Sir, it is learned that about 200 martyrs from Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Kerala will be excluded from the 5th part of dictionary, and next edition will be modified accordingly. Sir, this amounts to jeopardizing the truthful history, and such an action are highly condemnable and objectionable. Sir, there is a calculated move to brand Malabar Rebellion as communal. Sir, it is not fact. It is not correct. It was a historical struggle against the British Empire. Finally, sir, they sacrificed their life for the nation. That was the decision of the British Empire. They sentenced them to the death, and it has happened like that. That was the reason, sir. Their names were written with golden letters in our history. Sir, if we permit to cut up their names, it would be distorting to the history, and we should not be, sir, thankless to the freedom fighters. So I humbly submit that it is to be honored. We should not allow to recommend this ICHR. ICHR is finding fault with them, so it should not be allowed. I humbly request the government to desist from such move. Thank you very much, sir.
जी
धन्यवाद चेयरमैन साहब, आपने मुझे बोलने का मौका दिया। आपको
जी
रमेश सर, हाँ मैं बोल रहा हूँ सर। धन्यवाद चेयरमैन साहब, आपने मुझे बोलने का मौका दिया, इसीलिए आपको धन्यवाद दे रहा हूँ। मेरा संसदीय क्षेत्र के नवरंगपुर के मालकानगिरी जिले के चित्रकोंडा इलाके में पफलूर, कुरमानूर, धूलीपुट, रालेगड़ा और कालीमेला ब्लॉक के बेजिंगवाड़ा, तेलराई और पोडिया इलाके में कोंडा रेड्डी एक कम्युनिटी रह रहे हैं बहुत दिनों से, उनको जनजाति का दर्जा नहीं मिला है। मेरा निवेदन है कोंडा रेड्डी कम्युनिटी को जनजाति का दर्जा दिया जाए। धन्यवाद चेयरमैन साहब।
श्रीमती शताब्दी रॉय।
सर मेरा कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी बीरभूम में बहुत सारे ट्राइबल गांव हैं, ऑलमोस्ट 800, तो उसमें बहुत सारे चीज़ की ज़रूरत है। लेकिन आज मैं बोल रही हूँ एकलव्य स्कूल के लिए, मॉडल स्कूल के लिए। अभी मिनिस्टर ने कहा बहुत सारे बनाया, पीएम में भी बोले थे बनाएंगे। तो मेरा मोहम्मद बाजार जो ब्लॉक है उसमें मैं बता रही हूँ, उसमें एक मॉडल स्कूल बना एकलव्य, जहाँ पे रेसिडेंशियल स्कूल होना चाहिए, जहाँ पे बच्चे वहाँ पे पढ़ सकते हैं। भविष्य में जो बच्चे ट्राइबल बच्चे हो रहे हैं वो आगे बढ़े। और वहाँ पे और एक है जो द्रोणाचार्य मिशन द्रोणाचार्य आर्चरी होता है ना, वहाँ पे साई से मैं रिक्वेस्ट है एक वहाँ पे बनाए, क्योंकि वहाँ पे फुटबॉल प्लेयर्स बहुत है, एथलेटिक्स भी बहुत है। जो ट्राइबल बच्चे होते उनको अगर वो एथलेटिक्स भी नहीं बने, फुटबॉल प्लेयर भी नहीं बने, लेकिन बीएसएफ और डिफेंस में भी उसको चांस मिल सकते, इसलिए वो लोग को तैयार करने के लिए ये साई की बहुत ज़रूरत है। और आदिवासी जो महिला है उसका मेरा जो मोहम्मद बाजार ब्लॉक है वहाँ पे टोटल बीरभूम में 137 ये है ग्रुप है, सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप, उसमें 93 to 94 ग्रुप सिर्फ मोहम्मद बाजार में है। तो कितना इम्पोर्टेंट है वहाँ पे, कितना ज़रूरी है, ये आपके माध्यम से मैं मिनिस्टर को बोलना चाहती हूँ, इसमें नज़र दे तो वो लोग।
श्रीमती रीति पाठक।
बहुत धन्यवाद करती हूँ आपका सभापति महोदय। ये विषय सुनने में भले ही छोटा लगे और सबको सामान्य सा लगे, पर मेरे क्षेत्र के लिए बहुत गंभीर विषय है। अध्यक्ष सभापति महोदय, मैं आपके माध्यम से वन व पर्यावरण मंत्री से ये कहना चाह रही हूँ कि मेरे संसदीय क्षेत्र सीधी सिंगरौली का एक बड़ा भाग जो है वो जंगलों से घिरा हुआ है। महोदय, ऐसे क्षेत्रों से जुड़े हुए जो हमारे किसान हैं वो अपने खेतों में बड़े ही कड़े मेहनत के साथ खेती करते हैं, फसल उपजाते हैं, लेकिन समस्या ये नहीं है। समस्या ये है कि वहाँ पर जो हमारे यहाँ लगातार जंगली जानवरों की जो समस्या बनी हुई है वो सिर्फ मेरे ही क्षेत्र में नहीं, मुझे लगता है कि हमसे जुड़े हुए सभी संसदीय क्षेत्रों का ये महत्वपूर्ण विषय होगा। ऐसे जंगली जानवर जैसे नीलगाय हो गए, सुअर हो गए, बंदर हो गए, इनका लगातार आक्रमण हमारे खेतों में होता रहता है और हमारे किसानों के द्वारा उपजाई हुई फसल को नष्ट कर देते हैं। और उसके बाद की स्थिति आप समझ ही सकते हैं कि कैसी स्थिति हमारे किसानों की बनती होगी। महोदय, मैं आपके माध्यम से सिर्फ इतना ही आग्रह करना चाहती हूँ कि किसानों के हितों को ध्यान में रखकर जंगली जानवरों से फसलों की सुरक्षा हेतु उचित व्यवस्था हेतु निर्देश किए जाने की कृपा करें।
रम्या हरदास जी।
Thank you, sir. COVID cases is getting very low and weekly TPR in country is 0.29 only. People began their routine life and everything is getting into actual swing. Industries, government officers and MSMEs work with full strength. Schools and colleges open and work regular. The problem I point out here is the railway ministry is not ready even yet to reinstate pre-COVID situation in the case of passenger trains. Most of the passenger trains are not operating this service. Some of them are changed into express trains with limited stops. Halting stations are not functioning, so common people and daily passengers who depend on passenger trains are suffering more. Throughout Kerala, especially in my constituency, most of the people travel to neighboring state Tamil Nadu for their daily job and depend upon passenger trains. Pollachi, Palakkad, Tiruchendur route. Lack of passenger trains and cancellation of halting stations made their journey miserable. I humbly request the railway should take necessary steps to reinstate passenger train and halting stations immediately. Thank you, sir.
श्री धनुष कुमार जी।
மாண்புமிகு அவைத்தலைவர் அவர்களுக்கு வணக்கம். நான் சார்ந்துள்ள தென்காசி மாவட்டம் திருநெல்வேலி மாவட்டத்திலிருந்து புதிதாக பிரிக்கப்பட்ட மாவட்டம். இந்த மாவட்டம் பிரிக்கப்பட்டு 2 ஆண்டுகளுக்கு மேல் ஆகிய போதிலும் அடிப்படை கட்டமைப்பு வசதிகளிலோ தொழில்துறை போன்ற துறைகளில் எந்தவிதமான வளர்ச்சியோ பெறாமல் இருக்கின்றது. இதற்கு முக்கியமான காரணமாக கருதப்படுவது இந்த மாவட்டத்தில் உள்ள பெரும்பான்மையான பகுதிகள் ஹில் ஏரியா கன்சர்வேஷன் அத்தாரிட்டியின் கீழ் வருவதால் புதிய திட்டங்களுக்கு அனுமதி வாங்குவது மிகவும் சிரமமாக உள்ளது. தென்காசி மாவட்டத்தினுடைய வளர்ச்சியை கருத்தில் கொண்டு ஹில் ஏரியா கன்சர்வேஷன் அத்தாரிட்டியிடமிருந்து திட்டங்களுக்கு அனுமதி வாங்கும் வழிமுறைகளை எளிமைப்படுத்துவதுடன் இந்த மாவட்டத்தினுடைய நகர்ப்புற பகுதியிலான தென்காசி, செங்கோட்டை, கடையநல்லூர் போன்ற பகுதிகளுக்கு இதிலிருந்து விலக்கு அளிக்க வேண்டும் என்று தங்களின் மூலமாக ஒன்றிய அரசாங்கத்தை வலியுறுத்தி கேட்டுக்கொள்கிறேன். நன்றி, வணக்கம்.
मैं इस सदन में लगभग मैंने अपनी सूची निकाल के देखी तो 20 या 21 बार उठा चुका हूं और शायद इसका समाधान आपके इस आसन पर बैठ करके निकल जाए। और हमारे यहाँ एक निर्माण का कार्य 2008 से शुरू हुआ है, वो राष्ट्रीय उच्च पथ का है, छपरा से लेके मुजफ्फरपुर का। और अभी अंत में ये तय हुआ कि इस योजना को पूरा कराने के लिए 197 करोड़ रुपए की ज़रूरत होगी। बैंकों के साथ बैठक हुई और बैंकों ने 4 महीने के विलंब के बाद अपनी सहमति दे दी। लेकिन अचानक NHAI के पास जब ये प्रस्ताव पुनः गया और जो योजना 400 करोड़ का था आज 1200 करोड़ रुपए का हो गया है और अगले 3 माह में बारिश शुरू हो जाएगा और फिर ये काम रुक जाएगा। महोदय, आपके माध्यम से आग्रह है कि जो NH-19 का काम है इसको NHAI के EC के पास जाके अप्रूवल होना था, क्योंकि अधिकारी इस सड़क को बनने में 7 बार नेशनल हाईवे अथॉरिटी के चेयरमैन बदल गए, लेकिन सड़क का नक्शा नहीं बदला। और मैं इस विषय को उठाता हूं, जब भी कोई नया चेयरमैन आता है तो वो अपने हिसाब से काम करना शुरू करता है और फिर वो योजना बढ़ करके 100 करोड़ बढ़ जाता है, तो इसका परिणाम होता है कि सड़क का निर्माण में बाधित रहता है। मैं आपके माध्यम से NHAI को और विशेष रूप से NHAI के चेयरमैन से आग्रह करूंगा कि इस EC के बैठक में इसकी स्वीकार करते हुए इस कार्य को पूरा कराया जाए जो पिछले 12 साल से लंबित है।
धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय। कुछ दिन पहले ही मैं सर भाखड़ा ब्यास मैनेजमेंट बोर्ड ते बोलिया सी जिहड़े केंद्र सरकार ने रूल चेंज कीते आ सर। सिमिलरली उसे तरह ही चंडीगढ़ दे जिहड़े एम्पलॉईज आ उन्हां दे सिविल सर्विस रूल्स चेंज करन दी गल चल रही आ सर। 2 गल्लां पंजाब लई बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट हैगियां ने सर। चंडीगढ़ भी अनडिवाइडेड पंजाब ने बनाया सी, भाखड़ा डैम भी अनडिवाइडेड पंजाब ने बनाया सी। उदों साडे मुख मंत्री दोवां दे वक्त सरदार प्रताप सिंह गैरो सी और प्रधानमंत्री पंडित जवाहर लाल नेहरू सी सर। उदों जिहड़ी 1966 च डिवीजन होई ये मन्निया गया कि 60% हिस्सा पंजाब का रहूगा, 40% हिस्सा हरियाणा का रहूगा, पर रूल्स जिहड़े रहणगे सिविल सर्विस रूल पंजाब दे रहणगे वो हुण चेंज हो रहे हैं। मैं केंद्र सरकार नूं ये दसना चाहना, पंजाब ने हिंदुस्तान नूं ज़्यादा दिता ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਜ਼ਮੀਨ ਖਰਾਬ ਕਰ ਲਈ ਆ, ਸਾਡਾ ਅੰਡਰਗਰਾਉਂਡ ਵਾਟਰ ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, ਪਾਣੀ, ਸਾਡੀ ਜ਼ਮੀਨ ਜ਼ਹਿਰੀਲੀ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਆ। ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਨੂੰ ਕਣਕ ਔਰ ਚਾਵਲ ਪੈਦਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਦਿੰਨੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ। ਸਿਕਿਉਰਿਟੀ 'ਚ ਹਰ ਚੀਜ਼ 'ਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨਾਲ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਤੀਆਂ ਨਾ ਹੋਣ, ਇਹ ਆਰਡਰ ਨੂੰ ਵਾਪਸ ਲਿਆ ਜਾਏ, ਇਹ ਮੈਂ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ
जी। श्री फजलुर रहमान जी नहीं है, क्या बात है भाई। श्री दुलाल चंद्र गोस्वामी जी, ये नाम लिखा कर क्यों चले जाते हैं भाई?
धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय। मैं एक अत्यंत ही दुखद घटना की ओर आपका ध्यान आकर्षित करता हूं। सभापति महोदय, बिहार के मनिहारी और झारखंड के बीच फेरी नाव सेवा चलता है और इसमें मालवाहक जहाज भी चलते हैं। 24 तारीख को मालवाहक जहाज जो है मालवाहक जहाज साहेबगंज का से चला गरमा घाट से, और ये रात के 1 बजे कटिहार के बगल में आकर के गंगा नदी में हिलोर मार देता है और झुक जाता है और 5 नाव जो है 14 में से पानी में डूब जाता है। हम यह कहना चाहते हैं सभापति महोदय कि नाव परिचालन का नियम है सूर्य उदय से सूर्यास्त तक जहाज का जो परिचालन होता है, लेकिन झारखंड अभी इस परिचालन 3 साल के लिए झारखंड के पास है और ये लोग रात के अंधेरे में चिप्स गिट्टी बोल्डर लोड करके और नाव का परिचालन करते हैं, जिसमें 5 नाव डूब गया और नाव डूबने के बाद उसमें ये जो ट्रक के चालक ट्रक के खलासी मर गए सर जी, और उसमें 2 आदमी का लाश प्राप्त हुआ, बाकी लाश भी प्राप्त नहीं हुआ, ट्रक भी उपलब्ध नहीं हो रहा है। और झारखंड प्रशासन ये कह रहा है कि नाव सुबह चली थी। अगर नाव सर सुबह चली थी तो रात के 1 बजे पलटा और बिना कटिहार के एरिया में पलट गया वो, और बिना कटिहार का प्रशासन को सूचना दिए नाव वापस जहाज को वापस साहिबगंज ले गया। सर मेरा ये कहना है कि इस तरह से अनियमितता भर करके और लोगों का जान माल के साथ खिलवाड़ करना, सरकार के रेवेन्यू चुराने का काम, ये काम कौन कर रहा है? झारखंड सरकार के इशारे से कर रहा है, झारखंड प्रशासन कर रही है।
आप अनुरोध कीजिए केवल जो आप चाहते हैं
सर या फिर नाव परिचालन करने वाला सर इसको संज्ञान में लेना होगा, नहीं तो इसी तरह से घटना घटेगी और लोग मरेंगे और जो परिवार के लोग मरे हैं 10 लाख।
Honorable Speaker, sir, thanks for the opportunity. I raise here to draw the attention of the Minister for Chemicals and Fertilizers regarding the subsidy provided for farmers on fertilizers. Sir, in this year budget, that is the coming year budget, the subsidy has been reduced to an extent of 25% compared with the previous year, sir, the current year. Sir, this is going to affect the farmers across the country very severely. Particularly, Tamil Nadu farmers will lose about 1,500 crores of subsidy. This will result in the production cost more for the agricultures, and at the same time, another negative effect is that all the ingredients that are used for manufacturing the fertilizers is going up like anything. This reduction in subsidy compounded with the increase in the ingredient cost will raise the market price of fertilizers heavily, and it would affect the food price at the end. The consumers had to pay for it. Therefore, I request the government to take a serious note of it and to curtail the increase of fertilizers cost. Thank you.
धन्यवाद अध्यक्ष महोदय. मला आपण अतिशय महत्त्वाच्या विषयावर शून्य प्रहारामध्ये बोलण्याची संधी दिलीत. अध्यक्ष महोदय, प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना ही अतिशय लोकप्रिय योजना आहे, पण या प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजनेमध्ये पात्र आणि अपात्रतेचा जेव्हा विषय येतो त्यावेळेस तुमच्याकडे गॅस कनेक्शन आहे म्हणून तुम्ही घरकुल योजनेसाठी अपात्र, तुमच्याकडे मोबाईल आहे म्हणून तुम्ही घरकुल योजनेसाठी अपात्र, तुमच्याकडे टीव्ही सेट आहे म्हणून तुम्ही घरकुल योजनेसाठी अपात्र, तुमच्याकडे मोटरसायकल आहे म्हणून घरकुल योजनेसाठी अपात्र. अध्यक्ष महोदय, आपण गॅस कनेक्शन त्या ठिकाणी सामान्य माणसाला घ्यायला लावले आणि आता तेच गॅस कनेक्शन तुमच्याकडे आहेत म्हणून तुम्ही जर घरकुल योजनेचा लाभ त्याला देत नसाल, त्याच्यापासून वंचित ठेवत असाल तर ही अतिशय दुर्दैवाची गोष्ट आहे. ग्रामीण भागामध्ये ह्याबद्दल तीव्र प्रमाणात नाराजी आहे आणि म्हणून माझी आपल्याला विनंती आहे की ह्याच्या बाबतीतल्या ज्या अटी शर्ती त्या ठिकाणी ठेवल्यात पात्र आणि अपात्र करण्याच्या, त्याच्यामध्ये दुरुस्ती करून त्या ठिकाणी ह्या जाचक अटी रद्द करून सामान्यातल्या सामान्य माणसाला त्या ठिकाणी घरकुल, प्रधानमंत्री घरकुल योजनेचा लाभ घेता यावा अशा पद्धतीची व्यवस्था सरकारनं करावी ही विनंती आहे.
श्री बी चंद्रशेखर.
Thank you very much, sir, giving the opportunity. Raise an important issue related to my parliamentary constituency. Central government has sanctioned numerous road and national highway projects in Andhra Pradesh over the last 5 years. A new highway is planned from the Visakhapatnam port to Bhogapuram in the Vijayanagar district, where a greenfield airport is coming up. The proposed highway would be extremely useful as it would shorten the distance between the Visakhapatnam port and the state of Odisha and Chhattisgarh. It would pass through the Rishikonda and Bhimli beach corridor projects along the coast. Thus, the project would increase road convenience in the state and also contributed to the development of tourism in the region. The development of the national highway would also provide easy convenience to the proposed airport at the Bhogapuram for the people of Andhra Pradesh. So therefore, I would request the Honorable Minister of Road Transport and Highway Ministers to expedite the work on the proposed highway from Visakhapatnam port to Bhogapuram. Thank
श्री जसवीर सिंह गिल जी.
ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਚੇਅਰਮੈਨ ਸਰ ਮੈਂ ਅੱਜ 3 ਕਰੋੜ ਪੰਜਾਬੀਆਂ ਦਾ ਤਰਜਮਾ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਉੱਠਿਆ। ਅੱਜ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਗੁੱਸੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈ। ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨੂੰ ਹਰ ਪਾਸੇ ਢਾਹ ਲਾਈ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਆ। ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਚੰਡੀਗੜ੍ਹ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਅਫਸਰ ਡੈਪੂਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਤੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰੋਕ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਥਾਂ ਤੇ ਡਾਂਸ ਕੈਡਰ ਦੇ ਅਫਸਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ। ਸਰ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਇਹ ਹੋਈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅੱਜ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਸਰਵਿਸ ਰੂਲ ਚੰਡੀਗੜ੍ਹ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਾਗੂ ਸਨ, ਅੱਜ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਸਰਵਿਸ ਰੂਲ ਲਾਗੂ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਗਏ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨੂੰ ਕਦੀ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਇਹ ਕੰਮ ਸਹਿਣ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਸਰ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਪਾਣੀ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਲਏ ਗਏ, ਫਿਰ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਮੀਨ ਲੈ ਲਈ ਗਈ, ਹੁਣ ਜੋ ਕੁਝ ਸਾਡਾ ਇੱਜ਼ਤ ਮਾਣ ਬਚਿਆ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਹੱਥ ਪਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਤਾ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਬੂਲ ਨਹੀਂ। ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਮੈਂ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰਦਾ ਕਿ ਛੇਤੀ ਤੋਂ ਛੇਤੀ ਇਹ ਨੋਟੀਫਿਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਰੱਦ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ ਤੇ ਚੰਡੀਗੜ੍ਹ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਸਰਵਿਸ रूल जेड़े उदा दे उदा रहन दिते जान। धन्यवाद।
सभापति महोदय जी, आपने बोलने का समय दिया। आपके माध्यम से मैं कृषि मंत्री जी का ध्यान अपने लोकसभा जिला भिंड के किसानों की समस्या की तरफ आकर्षित करना चाहती हूँ। मेरे लोकसभा का जिला भिंड कृषि की दृष्टि से बड़ा उत्तम जिला है। कृषि में भिंड को और समृद्ध और क्षमतावान बनाया जा सकता है। केंद्र द्वारा देश में बड़ी संख्या में प्रत्येक जिलों में कृषि विज्ञान केंद्र खोलने की स्थापना की गई है। भिंड में भी एक कृषि विज्ञान केंद्र है, पर जिले की भौगोलिक क्षेत्रफल ज़्यादा होने के कारण संपूर्ण जिले के किसान इस लाभ से वांछित रह जाते हैं, जिस कारण जिले में अतिरिक्त कृषि विज्ञान केंद्र खोलने की अति आवश्यकता है। देश के यशस्वी प्रधानमंत्री जी का स्वप्न है कि हर किसान की आय दुगनी हो, इसलिए मैं आपके माध्यम से पुनः अनुरोध करती हूँ कृषि मंत्री जी से कि प्रधानमंत्री जी के स्वप्न को साकार करने हेतु भिंड जिले में एक अतिरिक्त कृषि विज्ञान केंद्र खोलने की अति आवश्यकता है, और जिससे कि किसानों की आय एवं क्षमताओं में वृद्धि हो। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
श्री वी कलानिधि जी।
Very much, sir. Sir, railway recruitment boards are recruiting several thousands of people every year, sir. It has already been a problem in Tamil Nadu, where we have found that most of the people who are recruited are from other states, and local preference is not being given for most of the southern states. And on top of that, we are also hearing that railway recruitment boards are also going to be shut down, where the number is going to get reduced. On top of that, a shocking news that we heard is the unreserved category, the cutoff marks of the exams put up by the railway recruitment boards are open to in the public forum, sir. In the websites, we find that the unreserved categories cutoff mark is lower than the reserved categories. How is it possible? I have never understood, sir. This has been happening for the last 3 to 4 years. From 2017-18, the unreserved category cutoff marks are lower than OBC, SC, and even ST candidates, sir. So I have also taken it to the Minister of Railways, and explained it to him through a letter and also in person, and he said that the matter has been looked into. But following that, I found that it still persists that way, and I urge upon you to insist on the government to ensure that the unreserved categories jobs are not taken away, sir. Thank you very much.
श्री दानिश अली जी।
धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय, आपने मुझे एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दा उठाने का मौका दिया। सर, मेरे लोकसभा क्षेत्र का एक छोर आबरोहा से शुरू होकर के दूसरा छोर हापुड़ में खत्म होता है। इस हापुड़ छोर पर आखिरी गांव बिगास है। सर, जब मैं चुनाव लड़ रहा था तब भी और पिछले विधानसभा चुनाव में इस गांव के लोगों ने वोटिंग डालने से इनकार कर दिया था, इलेक्शन का बायकॉट करने का ऐलान किया था। इनकी जेन्युइन समस्या क्या है सर? आपको जानकारी में है कि बाबूगढ़ छावनी जो कहते हैं वहाँ पर EBS एक्विन ब्रीडिंग स्टड जो है 1811 का बना हुआ है, जहाँ पर हॉर्स ब्रीडिंग होती है डिफेंस के लिए। वहाँ से इस गांव का रास्ता उसमें को निकल के है, पूरे उसमें अच्छा रास्ता बना हुआ होता है, लेकिन क्या है कि वो जो 1 किलोमीटर का रास्ता है वो नहीं बन रहा है। हमने उनसे कहा, लोकल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन ने भी कहा है कि या तो उसकी NOC दे दें तो हम अपने MP लेड से बनवा दें या जिला पंचायत से या किसी और निधि से बनवा दें, लेकिन EBS बाबूगढ़ जो है वहाँ का लोकल जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है वो ना तो NOC देता है ना वो रास्ता। आप देखिए सर, वहाँ जो बच्चियाँ स्कूल जाती हैं, जो प्रेग्नेंट महिलाएं हैं, इतने इतने गड्ढे हैं। मैं भी 2 दिन पहले उस गांव में होकर आया और वाकई मतलब वो जेन्युइन समस्या है। कहीं ना कहीं ये रेड टेपिज्म की बात है। मेरी आपके माध्यम से सरकार से मांग है, इनके बिगास गांव जो है इनके लोगों को न्याय दिलाए और वो रास्ता बनवाने का काम करें। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया
सर, मुझे बोलने का मौका देने के लिए सर आपका और ऑनरेबल स्पीकर सर के पास मैं बहुत आभारी हूँ सर। सर, अर्धनारीश्वर के परम भक्तों के विषय में आज कुछ मैं कहना चाहता हूँ सदन में। सर, किन्नर समाज जो हमेशा ही एक साहसी और प्रेमी समाज रहा है। सर, रामायण में जो मैंने सुना है और पढ़ा है सर, जब भगवान श्री राम को 14 साल का वनवास मिला था तब उनके पीछे पीछे भी उनके कुछ भक्त गए थे वन में। तब भगवान श्री राम ने इनको बोला था कि नहीं, पुरुष और महिलाएं वो वापस अयोध्या चले जाएं, और पुरुष और महिलाएं सब वापस गए थे, पर फिर भी उनके पीछे और कुछ लोग गए थे। वो सर और कोई नहीं थे, वो किन्नर थे, ट्रांसजेंडर या थर्ड जेंडर जिसे हम कहते हैं। उनके प्रेम और उनके सेवा से प्रभावित होकर भगवान श्री रामचंद्र जी ने उनको आशीर्वाद भी किया था सर। मैं सर आपको कहना चाहूँगा कि ऑल्दो आई फील प्राउड कि दोनों सदनों में ट्रांसजेंडर्स को इक्वल राइट देने के लिए या उनकी आइडेंटिटी को पहचान देने के लिए हम दोनों सदनों में बिल तो पास कर चुके हैं, काफ़ी वक्त हो चुका है इसको, लेकिन अभी भी सही मायने में इसको हमने लागू हर जगह में किया नहीं है। सर, ट्रांसजेंडर्स को आइडेंटिटी का स्वीकार करने का या उनके अस्तित्व पर सवाल उठाने का हमें हक भी नहीं है सर, फिर भी हम उस पर सवाल उठाते हैं और बोलते हैं। सर खत्म करूंगा 1 मिनट में सर। जी सर, वो चाहे रामायण से लेकर महाभारत तक हो, मुगलों से लेकर अंग्रेजों तक हो, और आज भी राजनीति में, कला क्षेत्र में, और सर यहाँ तक कि न्यायपालिका में भी इनकी भूमिका, इनके हुनर से, सूझ से योगदान बहुत रहा है सर। एयरपोर्ट्स में, अस्पतालों में, गवर्नमेंट ऑफिसेस में, पब्लिक प्लेसेस में, रेलवे स्टेशन पे सर कहीं पर भी इनके लिए सर टॉयलेट्स नहीं है आज भी। ये मेरा रिक्वेस्ट है सर, और लोकसभा राज्यसभा में इनका प्रतिनिधित्व भी होना चाहिए सर। दोनों सदनों में इनका प्रतिनिधित्व होना चाहिए, तभी इनके लिए हम आवाज और इनके आइडेंटिटी के लिए लड़ सकते हैं। आर्टिकल
धन्यवाद माननीय सभापति जी। मैं आपका और आदरणीय स्पीकर साहब का धन्यवाद देता हूं।
1 मिनट, इतना लंबा नहीं करना चाहिए जी, प्लीज।
खत्म करूंगा सर। सर, इस विषय को श्री रामचरित मानस से एक श्लोक के साथ में समाप्त करना चाहूंगा सर। पुरुष नपुंसक नारी व जीव चराचर कोई, सर्व भाव भज कपट तजी, मोही परम प्रिय सोई। सर, जब श्री राम ने इनमें कोई अंदर नहीं रखा है, समान इज्जत दिया।
आप शुरू कीजिए।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद माननीय स्पीकर साहब। मैं आपका और स्पीकर साहब का धन्यवाद देता हूं कि मेरा खरगोन बड़वानी जो लोकसभा है वो मध्य प्रदेश में पश्चिम निमाड़ के नाम से पहचाना जाता है। निश्चित तौर पर पश्चिम निमाड़ ग्रामीण क्षेत्र का क्षेत्र है, यहाँ पर कृषि के कार्य ज़्यादा किए जाते हैं। पहले गांव थे, गांव अब शहरों की स्थिति में बदल गए हैं। और वहाँ पर आवागमन के कारण कई बार ट्रैफिक जाम भी होता है। कई बार हमारे बड़े बड़े जो शहर बन गए वहाँ पर रास्ते जाम हो रहे हैं, जिससे हमारे नागरिकों को कठिनाई का सामना करना पड़ रहा है। मेरे संसदीय क्षेत्र में खरगोन जिले के कसरावत, खरगोन, गोगावा और बिस्टान, ऐसे ही बड़वानी जिले के खेतिया, निवाली, पानसेमल, सेंधवा, अंजड़ और राजपुर, यह बड़े शहरों की स्थिति में आ गए हैं और जहाँ पर ट्रैफिक जाम रहता है। मैं आपके माध्यम से माननीय मंत्री जी से आह्वान करता हूँ कि इन सभी शहरों में बाईपास की स्वीकृति दी जाए, जिससे देश के प्रधानमंत्री आदरणीय मोदी जी का जो सपना है कि स्वच्छ भारत और स्वच्छ बड़े रोडों का निर्माण, इसमें इस सब शहरों को
श्री
बाईपास का
राजमोहन
स्वीकृति दी
उन्नीतन
जाए।
जी।
आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, हृदय से आभार।
Thank you very much, Speaker sir. The wild boar is classed at least concern for wildlife protection by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, and it has become an invasive species posing threat to crops and human life in parts of its introduced ranges. Sir, in Kerala, wild boar has turned into a menace for the farmers as animal has been causing widespread crops loss in the state. Recently, wild boar attack claimed several lives in my constituency, Kasaragod. The government of Kerala has approached the Wildlife Institute of India, Dehradun, for classifying wild boar as a vermin. It would boar is declared vermin under the Wildlife Protection Act. It can be culled. Since the act is a central act, only the union government can modify it and classify the animals. Sir, the central government may be notification declare any wild animal other than those specified in Schedule 1st and Part 2nd of the Schedule H of the Act to be vermin for any area for a given period of time. As long as the notification is in force, such wild animals shall be included in Schedule 5 of the Act, depriving them any protection under the Act. Sir, the wild boar is classed at least concerned by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, and it has turned a menace to the farmers in Kerala, especially Kasaragod, my constituency. So I urge upon the union government may be pleased to declare wild boar as a vermin in Kerala. Thank you very much, sir.
श्री फजलुर रहमान जी, आप अनुपस्थित थे उस समय।
धन्यवाद, आपका आपने मौका दिया। मान्यवर, मेरा जिला सहारनपुर की मेरा सहारनपुर की बेहट तहसील उत्तराखंड की पहाड़ियों से सटी हुई है। इस वजह से बरसात के दिनों में पानी बहुत ज़्यादा आता है और उसकी वजह से जो बहुत सारी नदियां हैं उस बेहट तहसील के अंदर, वो एक इलाका दूसरे इलाके से कट जाता है। तो कुछ नदियों पर पुल बनवाना बहुत ज़रूरी है, जिसका जिक्र मैं यहाँ करना चाहूँगा। गांव मुर्तज़ापुर मसखरी नदी के ऊपर एक पुल बनवाया जाए और साथ में बादशाही बाग में भी एक पुल बनवाने का कृपा करें। कुर्डी खेड़ा भी इसी तरह का एक गांव है। इसके अलावा रामपुर तहसील में एक इलाका है कल्लरपुर, गांव कल्लरपुर, जिसका 20 साल से पुल टूटा हुआ है। उसका पिछली दफ़ा यहाँ एक ये इशू उठाया था, उसका एस्टीमेट बन चुका, लेकिन पैसे की ग्रांट नहीं मिली। इसलिए आपके माध्यम से कहना चाहेंगे कि उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार को निर्देशित करें कि पैसा ग्रांट करे और उस पे जो सूचना हो सकती है वो आप
श्री संतोष कुमार जी
बताने का।
सभापति महोदय, शून्यकाल में बोलने के लिए अवसर दिए इसके लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। मेरे लोग सहरसा पूर्णिया रेलखंड अंतर्गत मेरे संसदीय क्षेत्र पूर्णिया में स्थित जानकी नगर रेलवे स्टेशन पर जानकी एक्सप्रेस 15,283 और 15,284 एवं कोसी एक्सप्रेस 18,625 और 18,626 के ठहराव की मांग स्थानीय लोगों के द्वारा लंबे समय से उठाई जा रही है। इनकी मांगों को पूर्णतः वाजिब है। जानकी नगर रेलवे स्टेशन राजस्व के लिहाज से भी काफ़ी महत्वपूर्ण स्टेशन है और इस मांग को मैं भी संसद और रेल मंडलों की बैठक में उठाता रहा हूं। उपयुक्त ट्रेनों के ठहराव की मांगों को लेकर स्थानीय संगठन रेल विकास मंच के द्वारा 22 मार्च 2022 को पूर्व सूचना देने के बाद जानकी नगर रेलवे स्टेशन पर शांतिपूर्ण धरना प्रदर्शन का आयोजन किया गया और सूचना मिली है कि धरना में शामिल 150 लोग और को नामजद और हजारों लोगों को अन्य करके रेलवे थाना में एफआईआर किया गया है, जिसमें आम लोगों में भय व्याप्त है। जहां तक मेरे पास जानकारी है, धरना प्रदर्शन शांतिपूर्ण था, रेल की संपत्ति को किसी प्रकार का नुकसान नहीं पहुंचा है। ऐसे में दर्ज एफआईआर को पुनर्विचार की आवश्यकता है। साथ ही आपसे के माध्यम से मांग करते हैं कि उपयुक्त दोनों ट्रेनों का ठहराव जनहित में जानकी नगर सुनिश्चित किया जाए और इस केस को वापस लिया जाए जो वहां के लोगों पर किया गया है। यही आपसे आपके माध्यम से सरकार से मांग करते हैं, रेल मंत्री जी से मांग करते हैं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय जी, आपने मुझे इस पर 0 आवर में बोलने का मौका दिया। सर, मैं सदन का ध्यान प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना के तहत आक्रोश करना चाहूँगी, जो घर बनाने में प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना के तहत जो घर बनाने में सामग्री लगती है, जैसे कि सीमेंट, ईंट, सरिया आदि, इनके दामों में दिन प्रतिदिन वृद्धि होती आ रही है। लेकिन जो प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना के तहत जो धन आवंटित किया जाता है उसमें कोई वृद्धि नहीं हुई है, जिसके तहत जो लोग घर बनाते हैं या तो उनके घर अधूरे रह जाते हैं या तो घर बनाने के लिए उनको काफ़ी ऋण लेना पड़ता है। तो मेरा सरकार से अनुरोध है कि इनके लिए कम से कम या तो जिस रेशियो में सामान की वृद्धि हुई है उसी रेशियो में उनके धन की भी वृद्धि हो जाए। साथ ही साथ 2 और पॉइंट ऐड करना चाहूँगी सर, कि प्रधानमंत्री
एक ही पॉइंट बोलना चाहिए
सर, 2 पॉइंट से
जल्दी
सर, जो सूची बनाई गई है लाभार्थियों की 2018 के तहत, उसमें कई नामों की कटौती की गई है, कई नाम नहीं है। तो मैं अनुरोध करती हूं कि जिला स्तरीय कमेटी बैठाई जाए या सर्वे किया जाए जिसमें इन नामों की वृद्धि की जाए और लोगों पात्र लोगों को इसमें ऐड किया जाए सर। और जो घर गिर जाते हैं प्राकृतिक आपदा के कारण, इनको भी फास्ट ट्रैक क्या कोई सर्वे कराया जाए, इन लोगों के भी नामों को ऐड किया जाए। आपने मुझे बोलने का मौका दिया, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर। सर, बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण विषय, इसलिए 2 मिनट अधिक मांग रहा हूँ सर आपसे। सर, देयर इज अ ह्यूज अनसर्टेनिटी and concern amongst the students and their parents who are pursuing the medical education, especially after the COVID pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine war. The situation has been very pathetic. Sir, 90%, more than 90% of the students have taken heavy educational loans and their future is uncertain, sir. Sir, the COVID-19 induced pandemic has destabilized the practices in the education sector. With the new normal changing, the practices and norms of the education sector, there has been a major shift in the medium of teaching. The shift to online classes has greatly lauded and has been benefited to the students to continue their education while these online classes serve their purposes of teaching theory subjects. The students have enrolled for degrees such as medicines and other science courses are being deprived of practical classes which are vital for their practice. Sir, especially after 2 years after the pandemic, foreign medical graduates enrolled in universities, especially in China, Ukraine, Philippines, etc., have been going through a tough time, mounting mental stress, worrying about uncertainties in completing the degree courses. Most of them are at the verge of a suicide. Sir, they have a lot of current travel restrictions. As per a reply from the Directorate of Health Services, Kerala, assistance in clinical training can be provided with appropriate permission from the host university, which the students have obtained. Therefore, I request the union government and state government to look into the matter so that suitable help can be provided to the students in any possible form for the hands-on training in authorized hospitals in respective states, and also to amend the National Medical Commission so that these students...
मैं आपके माध्यम से एक पर्यटन मंत्रालय के तरफ से 2016 में स्वदेश दर्शन योजना की शुरुआत की गई थी और उस योजना के अंतर्गत पूरे देश के अंदर जितने धार्मिक स्थल थे उनके मरम्मत के लिए और उनको ठीक से बढ़िया से वो बन सके, पर्यटन के रूप में वो विकसित हों और जो धार्मिक मान्यता के अनुसार जो पौराणिक इतिहास के हिसाब से देवी देवताओं के स्थान थे उनको विकसित करने के लिए स्वदेश दर्शन योजना बनाई गई थी और उसके अंतर्गत सीधे सांसद के रिकमेंडेशन पर उनके क्षेत्र में मंत्रालय से पैसा भेजा गया था। लेकिन बाद में उसमें राज्य सरकारों को इन्वॉल्व कर लिया गया, जिसके कारण सांसदों के सीधे रिकमेंडेशन पर स्वदेश दर्शन योजना के अंतर्गत अब पैसा हम लोगों के रिकमेंडेशन पर नहीं मिल पा रहा है। इसलिए हमारा अनुरोध है कि जिस तरीके से 16 में योजना लॉन्च हुई थी और सांसदों के संस्तुति पर उनके क्षेत्र में पर्यटन विकास के लिए और धार्मिक स्थल के विकास के लिए पैसा जारी होता था, वैसे ही इसको जारी किया।
श्री राम शिरोमणि वर्मा जी।
धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय, आपने हमें बोलने का अवसर दिया। सभापति महोदय, भारत सरकार की नौकरियों में जनवरी 2004 से तथा उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार की नौकरियों में अप्रैल 2005 से पुरानी पेंशन व्यवस्था को समाप्त कर दिया गया है और इसके स्थान पर शेयर बाजार आधारित जोखिमों के अधीन नई पेंशन प्रणाली लागू कर दी गई है, जिस कारण देश के करीब 3 करोड़ 50 लाख लोग सीधे प्रभावित हो रहे हैं, जिससे शिक्षकों, कर्मचारियों और अधिकारियों में भारी रोष व्याप्त है और पुरानी पेंशन व्यवस्था की बहाली को लेकर देश के विभिन्न राज्यों में आंदोलन है। कोरोना रूपी वैश्विक महामारी के दौरान शिक्षक, कर्मचारी, अधिकारियों ने अपनी जान की परवाह न करते हुए पूर्ण लगन से मानवता की सेवा की है। देश में नई पेंशन प्रणाली लागू होने व निजीकरण के कारण आज भारत सरकार के शिक्षक, कर्मचारी व अधिकारी अपना पूरा जीवन देश को अपनी सर्वोत्तम सेवाएं देने के बाद भी अपने बुढ़ापे को लेकर चिंतित हैं। सभापति महोदय, आपके माध्यम से सरकार से मांग है कि जनहित में, देश हित में निजीकरण को रोकने व देश के करोड़ों शिक्षकों, कर्मचारियों व अधिकारियों की सामाजिक व आर्थिक सुरक्षा हेतु उनके बुढ़ापे की लाठी व पुरानी पेंशन व्यवस्था।
Thank you, sir. Sir, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme plays a significant role in addressing the issue of rural distress. Millions of rural workers in the country depends the scheme for their survival. Sir, MGNREGs had saved the economy during the lockdown. Still, the wages paid under MGNREGs remains below the minimum wages in many states. There is continuous demand from the beneficiaries and various state governments for revision of wages and increase the number of guaranteed working days under MGNREGs. I request the government to consider revised wages paid under this scheme. Considering the distress situation, it is necessary to increase employment days to 200 in a financial year. Budget allocation for the scheme should be enhanced for enabling the same. Sir, complaints about delay in the distribution of wages are reporting from many states including Kerala. Government should take review on this and necessary measures to be taken to resolve this issue. Thank you, sir.
महोदय, बहुत बहुत आपका धन्यवाद। सभापति जी, मैं एक ऐसे विषय की ओर ध्यान आकर्षित कर रहा हूं कि इस समय पर पर्यावरण को बचाने के लिए और संरक्षित रखने के लिए बहुत सारी चिंताएं की जा रही हैं। प्रत्येक ग्राम में जो छोटे बड़े झाड़ के जंगल के नाम से राजस्व की जगह पर सारी भूमियां अंकित हैं, पर अब लगातार धीरे धीरे करके सारे वृक्ष जो है समाप्त होते चले जा रहे हैं, लोग उन पर अतिक्रमण करते चले जा रहे हैं और गांव में भूमियां बची नहीं हैं और यहाँ तक कि वृक्षों की संख्या भी, लोग खेती करने के चक्कर में वृक्षों को भी लगातार काट रहे हैं, जिसके कारण से हमारा पर्यावरण बहुत प्रदूषित हो रहा है, शुद्ध वायु नहीं मिल रही है। तो सभापति महोदय जी, मैं आपके माध्यम से कहना चाहता हूँ कि इस राजस्व की इस 1 ग्राम की भूमि को इसको अतिक्रमण से बचाने के लिए इसका पूरा फेंसिंग किया जाए। वन विभाग इसको केवल फेंस कर दे, इसका संरक्षण कर दे, तो जितना रूट स्टॉक है वो अपने आप वृक्षों में तब्दील हो जाएगा 2-4-5 साल के अंदर। और जहां यदि ऐसी स्थिति नहीं है, लोगों को आवास की दिक्कत है, बहुत सारे लोगों ने आवास पे उस पर कब्जे कर लिए हैं, तो उसको परिवर्तित करके लोगों को आवास बना के दिए जाने के लिए भूमि भी उपलब्ध कराई जाए। बहुत बहुत सभापति महोदय धन्यवाद।
माननीय सभापति महोदय, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। मेरा लोकसभा क्षेत्र बस्तर के 6 जिले बस्तर, कोंडागांव, नारायणपुर, दंतेवाड़ा, सुकमा, बीजापुर में महारा जाति की जनसंख्या लगभग 10 लाख से अधिक है, जो कि बहुत पिछड़े व गरीब हैं। वे एससी में आरक्षण को लेकर लगातार मांग करते आ रहे हैं, लेकिन अभी तक आरक्षण का लाभ नहीं मिल पाया है। अभी वर्तमान में छत्तीसगढ़ शासन के द्वारा केंद्र सरकार के सामाजिक न्याय एवं अधिकारिता मंत्रालय को महारा जाति को अनुसूचित जाति के सूची क्रमांक के सरल क्रमांक 33 में महार मेहरा के साथ प्रतिस्थापित करने हेतु प्रस्ताव छत्तीसगढ़ शासन ने दिनांक
3 जून 2021, 10 जनवरी 2022 व 28 जनवरी 2022 को केंद्र सरकार के समक्ष सामाजिक न्याय एवं अधिकारिता मंत्रालय के पास भेजा है। अतः आपके माध्यम से मैं निवेदन करता हूं माननीय सभापति महोदय कि महाराज जाति को बहुत पिछड़े और जरूरत है उनको एससी में शामिल करने के लिए केंद्र सरकार तत्काल पहल करे। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय। सिखा के नौवें गुरु तेग बहादुर जिन्होंने कहते हैं कि हिंद की चादर गुरु तेग बहादुर, उन्होंने 400वां साला जिहड़ा दिहाड़ा है वो हरियाणा साडे मुख्यमंत्री श्री मनोहर लाल जी उन्होंने मनाने का उपराला किया पानीपत च। तो मेरी आप जी के माध्यम तो रेल मंत्री जी नूं विनती है कि जिहड़ी नांदड़ साहब एक्सप्रैस ट्रेन है जी वो साडे नरवाणा जिहड़ी मेरी कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंस सिरसा है उत्थों जिहड़ी है नरवाणा तो भी हो के गुजरती है। तो मेरी आप जी के माध्यम तो रेल मंत्री जी नूं विनती है कि उत्थे जिहड़ा स्टॉपेज जरूर दिता जाए ताकि जिहड़े भी साडे सिख बंधु ने वो जिहड़े नांदेड़ साहब पहुँचते हैं, नांदेड़ साहब जिहड़ा जी उत्थे 10वें गुरु गोबिंद सिंह जी जिहड़े सी वो ज्योति जोत समाए सी, वो बहुत बड़ा तीर्थ जिहड़ा है सिखां दा है। तो आप जी के माध्यम तो मेरी रिक्वेस्ट है जी उत्थे जिहड़ा है ना उत्थे स्टॉपेज दिता जाए। 24 अप्रैल नूं पानीपत च बहुत बड़ा उपराला जिहड़ा है वो आपां कर रहे हैं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। वाहिगुरू जी का खालसा, श्री वाहिगुरू जी।
सभापति जी, बोलने का मौका देने के लिए आसन को मैं धन्यवाद देता हूँ। सभापति जी, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ डॉनर में नॉर्थ ईस्ट स्पेशल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट स्कीम, ये स्कीम में मेरा जिला बरपेटा के 2 स्कीम गया था, असम सरकार ने भेजा था। एक है स्टेट हाईवे नंबर 2 के बोरटरी से ताराकंदी मुहिया मोइनबोरी हो के ताराकंदी तो के रोड, जिसका एस्टीमेट है 45 करोड़। और ये रोड होने से वहाँ के कृषि क्षेत्र का भी विकास होगा और हदीरा चौकी जहाँ पे मान और आहम का लास्ट बैटल लास्ट युद्ध हुआ था वो पर्यटन क्षेत्रों का भी विकास होगा। और दूसरे एक प्रपोजल गया था दौलगुमा सोयसीमाना रोड, इस पे एक आरसीसी ब्रिज 1/1 जिसका एस्टीमेट था 79.80 करोड़। लेकिन दुख के बात है अभी तो ये स्कीम मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ डॉनर ने सैंक्शन नहीं किया। मंत्री तो बदल हो गया, पहले डॉक्टर जितेंद्र सिंह था, अभी जी किशन रेड्डी साहब है। तो मैं उनसे गुजारिश करता हूँ आपके माध्यम से ये दोनों, एक जो बोरटरी से ताराकंदी भाया मुहिया मोइनबुरी रोड और सोयसीमाना दलगांव रोड के ये ब्रिज दोनों जल्द ही जल्द सैंक्शन होना चाहिए, काम होना चाहिए। धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय।
प्रज्ञा ठाकुर जी, संक्षेप में तुरंत।
धन्यवाद माननीय अध्यक्ष महोदय जी। मैं गौवंश के अवरुद्ध करने पर विषय हम रख रहे हैं अपना। महोदय, गौवंश का जो जिनको सांड कहते हैं हम, उनका बधियाकरण किया जा रहा है और गौवंश को, देशी गौवंश को रोका जा रहा है। जिनको जर्सी कहते हैं वो उनके दूध में कोई भी गुण नहीं है लेकिन दूध अधिक देते हैं, इसलिए उनको तो संरक्षित किया जा रहा है। परंतु जिनके जो देशी गौवंश है, देशी गाय, उनके दूध में जो गुणों से भरपूर है, रोम रोम में औषधि है, उनका वंश रोका जा रहा है और बधियाकरण करके उसको अवरुद्ध किया जा रहा है। हमारी गौ माता है वो, और हम उनके गौवंश को ना रोका जाए और उनको संरक्षित किया जाए, रोड पे ना मारी जाए वो, हमारा ये
माधव जी।
Sir, India has committed towards net zero emission by 2070 and by 2030 achieving non-fossil fuel energy capacity of 500 gigawatts. The government's push to utility scale projects is appreciated, sir. However, the rooftop solar program in the country has failed to pick up, sir. Sir, in this regard, I would like to request the government of India easy financing and also unrestricted net metering and an easy regulatory process could easily spur up the sector. Public financial institutions and other key lenders could also be mandated to lend to the segment, sir. Thus, I would request the Minister for New and renewable energy to simplify the process and reform the rooftop solar program to increase share of the residential sector in the total solar power
धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय, मैं बहुत आभारी हूं आपका, आपने समय दिया। देश के सामाजिक अधिकारिता मंत्रालय ने एडीपी योजना के तहत देश के दिव्यांगों को आवश्यक उपकरण दिलाने में जो महत्वपूर्ण योगदान दिया है, इसके लिए मैं माननीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूं। उनकी प्रेरणा से मैंने अपने लोकसभा क्षेत्र सतना में 23,000 से अधिक एक दिव्यांगों का पंजीयन करके उनको कार्ड दिलाया। मोटराइज्ड ट्राईसाइकिल लगभग 1400 से अधिक तथा अन्य उपकरणों में आज देश का सबसे अग्रणी जिला सतना बन चुका है। मैं सामाजिक न्याय अधिकारिता मंत्री जी से दिव्यांगों का राष्ट्रीय संस्थान खोले जाने की मांग करता हूं। साथ ही एलिम्को कंपनी के उपकरण सुधार हेतु सतना, मैहर, चित्रकूट में आश्रय केंद्र खोले जाने की भी मांग करता हूं। और मैं सभी दिव्यांगों को पूरे देश भर के जो माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी की आयुष्मान योजना है उसके साथ सभी दिव्यांगों को जोड़ा जाए, ऐसी मैं मांग करता हूं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
सभा की कार्यवाही मंगलवार 29 मार्च 2022 को प्रातः 11 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है।